Wow. All right. Here we are. This is definitely an amazing time, to say the least. There's a lot going on and there's a lot happening. And I think that everything that we're doing is perfectly timed for what we're experiencing and what all of us are experiencing in the reality right now. Meaning that where there's one situation going on, there's equally another situation to nullify it. And we definitely see spirit text as a scenario that can nullify the troubles that many are facing in their lives, or the anxieties and a lot of the different negative energies that we really don't want to welcome into our environment anymore. We want to have some solutions for that. So the first thing I want to start off talking about here is about why we actually started spirit text. And obviously spirit text is about 4 years old now. We started it maybe 2 or 3 years after our first social networking platform. And the driving mission and the idea behind Spirit Text was to create karma-free wealth, to actually begin to create a form of employment for conscious people, due to our discovery that 9 times out of 10, a person generally will find a big level of distraction and energy drain going on in their lives pertaining to the actual job. And since we all need jobs, there's bills, everyone has some kind of bill. Oh, well, not everyone, but some people have bills. So because of that, then that pushes us into actually having interactions that actually could be very counterproductive for our spiritual growth. In addition to that, because the average job takes up 8 to 9 hours a day, and then sleep takes up about another, 7 to 8 hours. If you're getting good sleep, that's 16 hours. So out of 16, 24 minus 16 means you have very little time left in the day for you, right? And so then you have, of course, all of the extra duties that you have outside of, this job or whatever, which is your children, if you have them, your spiritual development, your relationships, wife, spouse, all these different kind of things. So it's no wonder to me that the relationships between most people have a tendency to be very turbulent, and that's just because many people are vying for the same energy, and both are looking, or different people are looking for that same energy from each other, and few people have that energy to give, right? So to create a symbiotic relationship, that would mean that I would have a certain amount, a type of energy to give, and you would have another kind of energy to give, and then we would make an exchange. But generally, what happens is you have basically a plethora of people that are just taking, and they need. And this is because they haven't had much time to really work in their own field, in their own garden, in their own farm, if you may, which is their body, right? And their energy, which is really their seeds, is constantly being sown in the fertile grounds of something else, whether it's Sony, whether it's AT&T, or whether it's McDonald's, or whatever the job is that a person has to take. Their energy is going into that. And skipping all the spiritual aspects of that, just on the normal physical level, if you spend your energy on something, they always say you reap what you sow. So, just in the strictest sense, if we spend a lot of our time doing something that we really don't find ourselves completely connected to, then what then happens is just a disconnection. We just start to become disconnected from ourselves. We start to become disconnected from the things that we care about. And then this kind of leads to somewhat of a zombification, which is generally when I call some of these companies sometimes for tech support, and I'm talking to the person, it's like they're glazed over. I don't even know if I'm talking to a computer or a real person. It's just because the job is so redundant and offers very little for their expansion. And it's all about, hey, me getting this big corporation, rich and wealthy, et cetera, and you just fit into this small piece on the phone. Then that's what's going on. And I find that template itself is predatory. And I used to often have to ask myself, even in the past, that if I wasn't a slave, then why was I working? Because to me, when you're working, and that definition means not doing something that you actually want to do, something that you have to do. So when you're working, that puts a strain on the being. So I used to always wonder, why am I getting up at, 7, 8 o'clock and, starting to go through this whole process of the same thing I did yesterday, right? And fortunately for me, I started getting around people who were entrepreneurs. I actually moved from California to Atlanta around, I guess that was like 19, actually, I guess that was around the year 2000. And at that time, I mean, this place was really booming. And it was just after the Olympics, and there was a lot of stuff going on. But one of the main things that I noticed after I got employment as a computer engineer was that everyone that I worked with had this little side business going on. They either, if it was just a wing stand or a pressure washing company, or some kind of real estate thing going on, that everyone had this side business, and that's what they were doing in conjunction to the job, right? So I started thinking about, what kind of side business I was going to have. And, long story short, it started pushing me to the level of understanding business, like understanding the first part of being an entrepreneur, and writing business plans and all these different things that I was emulating from the people that I was watching and the things that I was studying. So obviously that's one life, but those things are very applicable still now, meaning that even though there is a massive spiritual movement that I've worked really hard to build and it is thriving now, there's also that back end of things, which is the financial side of, maintaining servers and technical support and customer service with different people and, relationship management with, the people that I have relationships with, all those things. And it could be quite demanding. So after a while, I said, well, no wonder why most people don't start things that help others, because it's even more difficult to just do things that may make. Not to mention, no wonder why people don't really start companies, because it's so easy to make a mistake, especially if you don't have a lot of resources. And then that mistake end up costing you your company. Not to mention, many people think that they can just go out and just create something that they want, like maybe ice cream in Alaska, and then think that that's what everyone else wants, and then finds out, after the investment's gone, that that's not what everyone wanted. So realizing these issues and these problems, and also the awareness that nothing happens overnight, contrary to what most people believe, because they see these quote unquote startup companies coming out of nowhere. And they see them become very successful. And they're like, man, that started up overnight. You can look at Kickstarter and these kind of crowdfunding outlets and start to get under the impression that it's maybe a little bit easy to start something, which is so false. Because first of all, if you're even seeing it, it's because someone was very good at social media and was able to get it in front of you in most cases. So the unsuccess or non-success stories you generally don't hear about because those people are not publicized. And I think the percentage personally is very high. It may be into the 80%, 80 percentile of people who actually start a business and that business becomes successful and something that they either have to shut down or it becomes just a drain on them. And then they're just trying to figure out if they should let something go that they took years building, or, just wait on that day for it all to happen because they need to just try something new. Right. And so when I started Spiritech with the idea of a karma-free wealth, it was totally different. I was introducing an idea where people not only could employ themselves, but also employ themselves by something that was helping other people. And what I felt like is that actually rewards one on a different level of current, actually on where more of the true current is, because obviously there's the money, but there's also the sheer fact of where when you assist someone and they needed that assistance, they really never forget that. Even if they, try to, they don't forget that, in that time that they were in that scenario, here you came and you gave them something that actually assisted them and helped them. And so to build something off of that, I felt was a great idea, because that to me is how things should be designed in my world, that things should be designed to be symbiotic. Things should be designed to propel the people that are involved in it as far as they can go, and also allow the person who even started the idea to keep developing that idea based on what they see and based on others' input. But of course, when you have those kind of visions, sometimes you don't see the back end. I have a joke about this. It's like when you ask to be the smartest person in the world, you're also asking to be around a bunch of idiots. So you need to understand that there's a two sides to every single thing that you're attempting to do, and you often only see that other side once you accomplish whatever it is you initially set out to accomplish, and now you see the full scope of it. So the full scope for us was that there actually wasn't many brands out there that were willing to even offer us any great commissions on selling their product or producing their product, or actually distributing their product. There was a major difficulty in just the overall back-end functionality of an affiliate network. Like, what is the software? Like, what records how a person's making transactions, or if a person's clicking through and links and making transactions. And there's the integration part. So basically, you wake up to this huge technological nightmare that you find that technology seems to be progressively going in a direction where things are not actually working really well together. And so when you're trying to make one platform with another, then what you end up with is some kind of error that it's not working. And then the company telling you, well, we're working on that functionality. We'll call you later. So we pierce through all that. And that's actually what the last 4 years has really been about, is all of the different scenarios that need to go on, even getting the word out that we even exist, and then seeing, giving commissions, but then also realizing that if we're paying so much for our wholesale cost, then we basically just kissed our profit right out of the window. There is no profit. The profit goes to the affiliate. And but still we kept going because that's how things start. And I know, because I've dealt with business before, that the ultimate goal is to put yourself into a position to where you're actually producing something. So the reason why we're having this success seminar is because we finally got to that point. We finally got to the point to where we can actually produce something, and we've climbed so many hurdles. And it just, I really want to start broadcasting at least a little bit, as much as I can, because broadcasting also means post-production. That means that once you film something, you also have to put in the timeline, cut stuff off. And that, it takes a lot of time. You're literally like going back and doing the whole thing over again. So what I want to do, though, is I want to start to show people exactly how many things that I'm doing, because I know that there's this huge misconceptions that this may even be somewhat easy. And it's not to make people think that it's so hard. It's just to give a realistic view into what it takes to do something like this, just so that one can get themselves prepped. Because I believe anything that you know the ropes to and you can see the ins and outs of, you can actually start to do these things. And as long as you have a good, let's say, mentor or a good example of it being done. And for me, again, like, I'm just a get it done person. So I'm like, okay, well, I can't do it and hold the camera at the same time most of the time. So I'm just going to do it. And what that's kind of not allowed people to see is that, hey, what does it take to actually get to this point? Because Spiritech is different. Spiritech is actually something that does give a person a view into the play-by-play. And we've wanted to set up those resources. And so even this conversation that we're having today, the Zoom platform, and figuring out this is the best thing for us, and all those things are a part of it. But each of those steps, it's not just like you make the first step and then that one works, right? It's like we've tried 4 or 5 platforms. We've had different types of meeting. We set out to do different types of things, but all those attempts are actually the most important part, because generally during your first attempt of something that you don't even know about, it's probably not going to work. But then when you pick yourself up again, figure out what didn't work, try it again, maybe that doesn't work either. So there has to be this attitude of resilience, right? And that actually needs to be personally embedded in you. That's what I'll tell you. It's not something that you can actually look for other people, especially in the beginning, to give you, because actually what they're just going to be doing is like, hey, let me get this. I want this. This is what I want. And, and then it's going to just be you trying to develop to a level to give those people what they want. That's actually called marketing. And so none of this is really foreign. None of this is how things don't go. So if you're not prepared for it, it could literally be like, let's say, for instance, if you come out with this higher level of knowledge and you think that everyone in hearing this knowledge is going to change their lives, and then you go out there and you give it out and you find out that they don't even care what you're talking about. It could either be extremely daunting for you, in most cases it is for most people, or it could be a test for you to see where you're really at. If this is about everyone else, or if it's just about you. And fortifying yourself, learning more, being more, becoming a solid foundation for others, and also, of course, staying grounded within yourself, right? So you have more amplification, you'll have more power. So in the beginning, Spiritech, we had to start somewhere. There was lots of misconceptions behind business and how things really worked, even for myself. When I set out to do certain things, I had a big plan. I did have some resources to accomplish those plans. And then I started realizing the conundrum of actually finding others that are completely in sync with where you're at with the plan. And because time is energy, and energy does translate in this world to money, the more time that you're spending attempting to start something and it's already launched, it's literally running this clock of energy, if you may, that's also connected to time. So if for some reason you run out of that, then the whole thing crashes down. So what I've had to do is I've had to run from, pillar to post, as they may call it, launch different things, start different things, like the university and those kind of things, to all keep fueling other ideas that actually hadn't come into life yet, hadn't completely matured yet. They needed that first part of the phase of the manifestation, which is a lot of what our courses are going to teach now, is about those first phases of the manifestation, which is like your manifestation still in the womb itself. And because life doesn't begin when the baby comes out of the womb, right? Life begins as the baby's in the womb and through the development. And if that baby is not developed properly, then the baby doesn't actually come out properly. So where we like to begin is we like to begin in the womb phase, and we've had to do that ourselves. So the big difference between us is that we're now going to be showing what the womb phase looks like. What were things that we weren't prepared for, and what were the pitfalls, and how did we come up with solutions? One of the big techniques, how to troubleshoot. Like, that's the big key to this, because you'll even talk sometimes to people who created something and they won't know what happened and what the problem is. And that could be frustrating. You can call someone and say, hey, it's not working, and this is the owners of the company. And they're like, we've never seen that problem before. We don't know what's going on with it. And you're like, huh? And then the even more interesting part is when you actually fix it. Because, it's like you still need to use it or whatever. So you fix it, and then you're telling them how to fix it. And they're like, thanks, we created it, but we didn't know how to fix that. But you told us how to fix it. Huh? So there's so much that's actually a little bit in disarray out there about how this whole thing works. And sometimes I feel like that's done on purpose. Sometimes I feel like big business and these massive corporations have literally set up this huge pitfall web for people who want to start their own businesses and companies. And that's why we don't see many ingenious applications that actually are benefiting our growth. We see a lot of applications that have ingenious inner workings, but that somehow end up creating us just sending all of our energy, sending all of our time, sending all of our attention into something that's not rewarding us. So now, what I feel like embodies Spiritech is we change that. Those that get involved with us begin to receive the full aspects of what it takes to see the best out of themselves on the physical, because Spiritech is not secret energy. They're connected, but secret energy is the part that deals with the spiritual aspects of things. Spiritech is about the physical. It's about how do you make it in this world? How do you thrive? Okay? So moving on, what I wanted to first get into here is I want to talk about first solving your personal riddle. Because what happens is that we can go out and we can try to assist as many people as we want. But if we're confused, if we're still having problems and issues with ourselves, which I call the riddle, then it is going to reflect on what we do. Now, it doesn't mean that you stop helping everyone, but it just says something. It says that, if you find yourself to be a complete roller coaster most of the time, then you would need to know that whatever you intend to do is going to reflect that roller coaster in you. So it is best to get that whole part straightened out first. I call that the personal riddle. 7 years ago in my life, I went on the advent of solving my personal riddle. And this is all of what was created after that riddle was solved. So I spent, let's say, 20 or 31 years, if you're counting from the time I came in the world, I spent 31 years not knowing truly what I was, who I was, where I was. And then finally, it doesn't even matter. That's the highest level of it. You are, all right? It just is. And through that process, like I said, this last segment has been actually solving that personal riddle. So solving that personal riddle put me into a position where I can start to work on the collective riddle, right? And what I mean by that is that now that I have my riddle solved, it now started letting me look to the person or the beings that were adjacent to me, immediate family members, friends, colleagues, whatever, and start saying, well, what's the collective riddle? Not what is that person's riddle. Remember, each person can only solve their own riddle, okay? So when you look at the collective, that appears as everyone added together. So you can look at the collective riddle and say, so, the collective riddle. What's going on with the collective riddle? And here's some things that I noticed right off. First of all, we didn't have a bank, okay? Well, first of all, we didn't have sovereignty. Let me just put it that way. Sovereignty, of course, is that you have the ability to produce all your powers without the need of anyone else. So you have your water, you have your electricity, you even have access to food. And then if, there's money in the dimension, so you have this like infinite supply of money going on from whatever, something that you've created that is residually taking care of you. So how many people do you know that are actually in that position? I should do a poll about that. And I'm sure out of 20 people, maybe one, maybe a half, somebody that's almost there. Because even sometimes when people get very wealthy, they don't actually go and right away start getting their grid together and supplying their own power and then figure out where their wells are. And they don't go into doing that. They actually start buying more houses in different places to stay that look nice. And right. So because they feel like, well, the money is going to always keep me wealthy. But sovereignty has a specific definition, and it's basically the ability to supply your own power. So I didn't meet really too many sovereigns just overall. And so that in the collective. So that was the first thing. As I said, man, there's nobody that really has himself completely sustained. And then the next thing was, of course, is that when I say a collective, let's say collective conscious, which means a group of people that are actually conscious, because now that's what we will be more honing in on when I'm talking about the collective riddle, right? Not the world riddle. Talk about the collective riddle, the people who think similar to the way that I think, right? And in that collective, I found that conscious people, quote unquote, had no source for resources, that they didn't even have their own bank. Which forced them all the time to keep going right back into the things that annoy them the most, the things that they don't believe in the most, to transact and to sustain themselves, right? And when I looked into, well, why is that? I came right back to the first part of this conversation, that it's very difficult to actually start a business. You need resources. You need people who believe in you. You also have to have a lot of charisma. You have to be able to troubleshoot. You have to be, you have to have some kind of some intellect, something going on, right? That's what this whole thing demands. Now, all those things actually could be taught. All those things a person could learn how to do if they don't, if someone is willing to teach them. And I also found in the collective that we were a bit low on that too. That there were a lot of people that were looking to justify just the damage that they had taken and they experienced by telling others about what was creating that damage. And I was in that club too, meaning that, we can always highlight who is not working with the overall collective of the world getting to a greater level, right? There will always be somebody dragging it down. So because in the victim stage, you're always looking for something to blame, then you can often find that you just highlighting who to blame somehow equates to you as teaching. But teaching is actually coming up with the solutions for repairing and rectifying the things that have occurred due to whatever it is that you want to blame. So it's an entirely different position. So I did find it, the world a little bit low on people who also, or the collective a little bit low on people who also knew the ropes of both worlds. Now you had some brilliant spiritual people, but then when you tried to see if, so how does that connect also with what I'm supposed to do in daily life? And even I used to have to ask myself that question all the time. That's why I created Spiritech. I said, it's great to give everyone this information and things, but if they have to keep going back into, the mess all the time, then, we got to do something about that. But then, of course, the optimist, or the one who is the innovator or the pioneer, has a lot of thoughts. And this is actually, specific traits of certain zodiacs. People are like this. They just have all these ideas. But then there's the maturity of that, or of that sign, like actually completing what that life path says needs to be complete, which is you need to now learn how to focus on one thing until you get that done, and then move to the next thing. And also learn how to prioritize which one of those needs to be done in order for the other one to even be realistic to happen, right? So there's that whole lesson. So how I see this now is that now Spiritech is at 900 plus affiliates. That is the perfect number for us to begin to explode. Like, it's actually happening on different levels, like the invent of Phi Aqua and advent of Phi Aqua and the resonators and all those kind of things. So that shows me on another level that it does connect to this time, but also because of the amount of Spiritechs that are actually participating now, it also connects in with how we can make this thing happen, because we have that, someone would say 6, I say 3 degrees of separation to connect us into everything, meaning that as people adapt to this more and realize what's going on, their presence and their involvement in it connects us and connects them, etc. And it just keeps growing and growing. And you just need like a certain amount to begin to do that. If you try to do that with one person, it's like, you need 2 people, three people. It's kind of like how I seen the resistance grow. It was like 40 people and we were excited. Yeah, there's 40 people on the site. And then eventually that became 300 and we were like, man, this is crazy. We're big now. And then now, of course, it's around 18,000. And then also all the impressions around the internet. But each of those phases were necessary. And of course, when you turn on the lights in the site the first day, 18,000 people didn't just pop up there. Just like when we turn on the lights in Spiritech the first day, just in going with this effort, like 900 people didn't pop up. But now that we have 900 people, it's now time to unfold what I believe is a perfect solution for the scenario that we're experiencing right now. And some of the things that I highlighted that we didn't have, and that has to go in somewhat of a sequence. But those solutions are: 1, now that we have placed ourselves in the position of manufacturing, we begin a brand new template to exactly how companies work. Just like open source started a whole new template about how things should be done, we're going to do that same thing. We're going to say, well, honestly, when you look at the top of the pyramid in most companies, the people that are up there, if they even delegated 15% of what they're making to the rest of the people involved in their organization, all those people would be in the 6-figure salaries because of just how much those corporations make. So it's a simple gesture. It's just saying that if we took more capital from the top and flushed it into what the people that were coming in and motivating them to create and do things more because they have now capital to do that with, then you would get more like a parallel growth. You would get a spreading rather than this vertical growth that basically ends in this capstone of this one person reaching success. It's like, I find that a lot of the books that are written about success seem to be just about the person achieving success because they got you to write the book. It's like, well, shoot, I read the book, I paid the guy $24. I didn't really, get to success, but I'm sure that they did, right? And it's now looking at it's like, okay, so how much can you really do to bring a person into success? And what do you really need to look at and what do you really need to pay attention to? And so these would be things like marketing, matrix mechanics, all those different kind of things, which we're going to talk about in a moment, and how we're going to assist people with getting that knowledge and information so they can keep on expanding. But where we're at right now is we're simply talking about Spiritech becoming the manufacturing arm of this affiliate program, if you may, or the specialist program as we call it. And then our commission's going to a certain rate on those products that we produce. And then that allows a person to actually make an income that really, really they can start to supplement the income that they're already making, and then get to a point where they remove it altogether, right? And then the next phase is, and this is a projection. This is how I project. I project things in stages. The next projection is then when Spiritech gets solid with its manufacturing and its production, which it will, then it switches over the monetary system that we're generally on, which I guess is US greenbacks or whatever country you're in, and begins to develop its own cryptocurrency to where its products actually back the worth of its currency. And that as our manufacturing begins to grow, because we will have those facilities, then we begin to directly place people in those facilities to not only learn how to, create things themselves, but also as a way and a means of making income. And then this begins to build a system of financial support. So that way, when we have other endeavors that are strictly humanitarian, because some people, just think all the time, and this is a lot of big misconceptions, like a lot of conscious people believe that consciousness should never have anything to do with money, right? And this is just another one of the slavery mind jobs that they put everyone through. And they always say, spirituality has nothing to do with money. And even I was under those conceptions, and those conceptions come directly, generally, from the Bible. The turning over of the money tables and all that. And it's those kinds of golden calves, which is what we call them, or that anchor in the person's mind. And then when they supposedly get conscious, then they're like, I don't want to have anything to do with the money thing anymore. But then when they have this grand vision and idea, they don't have the finances to make it happen. And then when they go and ask someone else that has those finances, hey, can I borrow this money so I can get this happening? The only way that that person has finances is because they were very successful in business. So the first thing that they're going to ask you is, so how am I going to get paid back? And the person says, well, it's not about that. It's about a humanitarian effort. So then most of the time what actually happens is not that those people don't want to give to humanitarian effort. They just feel like they have a better idea of a humanitarian effort than you do. And they would rather just spend their money in doing that, like giving to Red Cross and Red Shield, which no one ever sees the money, giving to this charity, etc. Right? So this is the cycle. So where this ends up is the people who have these brilliant ideas about things that could be implemented into our reality to really begin to boost the consciousness, the intellect, and the intelligence for the children, the adults, etc. No capital. And because they don't believe they should have any money, that's a personal projection that they've sent out, and then now they're stuck. Then they get frustrated because while they may have had some success spiritually, there is no fulfillment. Fulfillment is mental, physical, spiritual. Solve the riddle. Now I'm straight. I can really move on from here if necessary, but I don't feel the big stress and tension, sometimes related to time and gravity, that goes on for everybody else because I already got the t-shirt. So I've already been fulfilled. So we want to bring people into the level of fulfillment. And the first part of that is to close that gap of the misconceptions about why you need resources. Okay. And we'll say it just like this. It's almost like a mantra to yourself. When your mind starts to think that you don't need financial currency, you don't need resources, immediately just send the message back in, but we need to be sovereign, because you'll find that the mind can't argue against that. It can't say, well, no, we need to be here and working at this place, and that's where we're supposed to be in life. Now, if that's going on, then there's a bigger problem than you think. The truth is that all you have to do is keep telling yourself that it's not the principles of what others are doing with their money in Vegas and all that kind of stuff, which is all the time when we see money, we see, all the dark sides of it, right? But the truth is that the only thing that we need to see is our sovereignty. And then once you see just your sovereignty as the means to the end, if you may, or the reason why you're doing what you're doing, then things start to click. You're able to actually restore that power that you used to have. Some actually may have never had it because they may have never been trained to do, to get sales or to sell something, right? Like the whole world is now in throes with, if someone doesn't like what you're presenting, whether it's yourself, whether it's your book, even if it's knowledge, whatever it is, they don't like what you're presenting because you don't know how to present it, then you don't get to the next stage of where you want to go. So a big part of this is about instilling yourself first with that internal confidence that is coming off you as a frequency where you're not sending mixed signals. So that way, when you come to someone about something or you create something, it doesn't have those mixed signals inside of it. It has this signal of sovereignty. And then because that resonates with so many people, and that's why Spiritech is really open, because even if someone else that resonates with that idea of sovereignty immediately sees, they may get what you have and say, oh, okay, yeah, I need those products. I need to help myself clean my blood. But here's something else that I can also get involved in to start to get on my path to sovereignty. You see, so this is opening up a way, because that way is not really there. Like I'm looking at the big names. I'm looking at Mind Valley. I'm looking at integrative nutrition. I've even reached out to many of these people, and man, one email back was like, we'll review who you are in a nutshell, see how much money you have, see if you're valuable to us. And if that's the case, then we'll call you in for an interview. And then if you're accepted, then you're going to have to pay $3,000. So it's like, a walled garden before you can get into, what, they're even talking about and they're trying to present. Yet the marketing it's presented as, hey, this is an outlet for everyone to manifest and to get onto a higher level of the consciousness. You see? So this is what's happening. So the first thing that we're going to go into, because again, this is about an hour and a half meeting today, is we're going to take that sneak peek look at Phi Aqua, which many people are waiting on. And to do that, I'm going to do a share screen here. One second. And there we are. All right. Uh-oh. All right. So it switched over there. There it is. Okay. And so what I'm going to ask, because now my chat box kind of just went away, but I can see that you're now seeing the share screen. All right. There I am. Let me see, where kind of settings do I have over here? Okay. Well, I guess I don't actually need to see the chat box. So I guess just a quick confirmation that you can see the share screen, which it does look like it's appearing here. And that would be great. And let me see if this is, okay, there we go. There's some chat. All right, here we go. I got my chat box back. All right, so if everyone's able to see that share screen, okay, so everyone says they're able to see it. What you're looking at is actually what's inside of phiaqua.com, that there is actually a website back there. I know we have the splash screen up, and that's just because the products are not all available. There's no reason in letting everyone in. But I've decided that I'm going to actually, after tightening this up just a little bit more, I'm going to go ahead and open the site and then let everyone know that the products that are coming soon are coming soon. The products that are available now are available. And so just a little background on Phi Aqua. So what happened is that I was developing these suits that actually send power into the chakra centers. And what happened is that I'm headlong into this project. Like, I'm figuring out how can we create this wearable tech, if you may, this wearable spirit tech. And so I'm studying all these different components. Like, I'm studying graphene, I'm studying flexible circuits, which is the main thing that you have to know about. And I'm deep into the cymatics and frequencies. You're like, now I've really got it down to a science. Like, I have charts and sheets that let me know what specific frequencies do. And at a certain point, when I realized that I could actually secure the investment for the creation of that product, I really had to ask myself, because that's just something, just because someone's going to give you something, you remember, like, investments are not somebody giving you something. Investments is somebody that is believing in you and trusts you, but they want their money back generally. It's like they generally state that in the beginning, right? So with an investment, I started to realize that, I need to make sure I was very responsible. So I asked myself, will the chakra suits, because they were, I have a chakra suit beta up there now, will it really do what we need it to do? Or am I selling ice cream in Alaska? And I said, well, Seven, I feel it would be great. It's going to be great. Like, I use it myself, but to get the amount of attention that is necessary when you begin. See, because when you begin something, it's like you're pushing that first domino. And that first domino is responsible for making all the other dominoes fall. But what if that domino that you're pushing is just made out of paper, just made out of fluff, just made out of air? So the first domino falls and it just taps the other dominoes, but none of them knock over. See, that's a business to where you had this big plan about how the company was going to grow and all these different ideas, this, cryptocurrencies and all that kind of stuff. But your first domino, you failed to really think about that. And then when you pushed it down and you released it, it didn't do what you thought it was going to do. I intuitively knew Chakra Suits was going to be that way, that our group, the people that we deal with, they were going to love it. But as far as the rest of the world, they weren't going to understand it, because most of them still are trying to accept that there is even a chakra, right? And right around that time, maybe about 2 weeks before this whole scenario of me now being able to choose which product I'm going to manufacture, I started to have these early morning visions about water, ultra pure water, purifying water, a lot of things that I learned about programming water, from frequencies to radio waves to cymatics and those kind of things. And when I was in the conversation with my investor and great friend, that somehow came up in the conversation, and we just knew it then. We knew that creating a water device was going to be it. And it's just because everyone drinks water. So you're not starting off with something that people need to learn about and be familiar with. You're starting off with something that everyone has to do, and at least they understand it. Now, obviously, we had to put our own spin on it, like just to even create another water filter, which I can create a water filter. I understand how water filters are created. Um, there's different kind of things you can do with water. And what it came to me though was like, well, what if we go all the way? Because I'm looking at articles from Technicolor. Actually, I have the scientific papers from Technicolor, how they put how they embedded the water with the frequency of the DNA chain that equals the movies that they're storing in that one vial of water when they backed up all of Hollywood's classic movies into one little small vial of water, right? So I'm reading about the entire process and I'm realizing that this is not only something that people have always kind of wanted to do, but even some people try to do it. Like off of some of Yamamoto's work Emoto's work, you see that they write onto bottles, "I love you," and then the water crystals supposedly change into the kind of pattern that is more of a perfected water crystal, right? And so people have this. There were people that have this desire to actually change the structure of their water, but there's also this major thing that goes on with water. Like I can't say it enough that it's in the water. That's like some of our oldest videos, that the quality of water that we're drinking generally in the tap from the tap will actually give you brain damage. Like they've now come up with a lot of that. Hey, basically the problem with, even inner city youth and many different things, if they're even drinking water, many different scenarios, is the quality of the water, and the chemicals and the pesticides that are actually in the water are actually really affecting the consciousness. They're giving from a physical level first. And, you can always already see the spiritual ramifications of drinking contaminated water, and the body being 60 to 70% of water. It's a big thing. But then on our tier, though, a lot of people get into manifestation. They get into, success. They've read all the books, Think and Grow Rich and Napoleon Hill, and, all the different subjects related to, The Secret. All that stuff just connects in with itself. It starts talking about basically thinking and then focusing, and then that being the most powerful part of manifesting something. And since I had all of this data already about how to really control the aspects of water, and I actually could do it. I have a room, which is where we create a lot of different things, and you'll be seeing that room in a lot of our upcoming media. But I was already capable of doing it, but it was like a whole table of equipment. And basically we decided, how can we take this entire table and put it into one device? And that's what Phi Aqua is. So what you're looking at is the website for Phi Aqua, and we'll just go briefly over a list of some of the things that it can do. So obviously here, but basically what it's stating, and let me enlarge this just a bit if I can, is that you can program water with frequencies and light. And the technology that we're actually using is so dialed in. Like we have the exact nanometers. We have the exact types of ultrasonic transmitters. So we're programming water from 3 different levels with the same intention. And that intention is what you select. You have presets that, because we're not going to like make you figure it out, like, because frequency is a very complex science. Actually, it's one of the most vast subjects because it gets into energy, right? But so we have those presets, but we also, with this device, give you the ability to set your own presets, to dial in your own frequencies. Because as you learn more and more about frequencies, as we keep supplying that knowledge and that information in our database, you will have some of your own personal concoctions that you want to make. And you can do that with this device. So you get a full spectrum luminance that is calculated by nanometers. You get the ultrasonic transmitter, and you have a dual vortexing. And this is another big thing, because most devices that even structure water, because obviously Phi Aqua also structures water. It structures and programs and energizes water. But most water structuring devices, they actually only go one direction. But based on certain things like cycles and intentions, those kind of things, there's certain directions that are more beneficial. So Widdershins or diesel or left or right or counterclockwise and clockwise. So you would need something that actually has the ability to do both of those. And I actually hadn't seen anything out there, even stir plates, that were capable of going in both directions. So you have that. You have the geometric resonance and the calibration. And what that is that actually, some of the stuff that I found out on the process of making this device is that when you have, there's a 300 milliliter vessel in here, but when you have a vessel, the resonance of that, the resonance of that device actually has to be tuned. The resonance of that vessel has to be tuned to the size of the device. And this is interesting. That's why we have to use this perfect mathematics, because it's just like an instrument. Just because, you make this guitar and it looks like, and, let's say it's wood carved and it looks like that other guitar that's wood carved, you now have to tune it. And so what we've done is we've tuned the vessel to be geometrically resonated to the actual device. And the geometrics that we're dealing with is actually the 7 patterns of symmetry that are within crystals, because crystals, you have these, basically you have this geometry like the flower of life and tetrahedrons and all this kind of geometry. And, quite frankly, that's not really the geometry that is embedded within Phi, because Phi's geometry is really non-Euclidean. So it actually looks more like, I could show people in a minute. Actually, I'll show you right now. Just take a look at this. Let's see, let's see, a new share. Okay, we're going here. So I'm assuming you're looking at this. So this is what we would be talking about. Like, none of these shapes are perfect pyramids. None of these shapes are perfect rectangles. And let me see. Yeah, I'm assuming that you're seeing this. And but all this can actually form at the end of the day this straight line that makes up this wing of this insect. Okay, so that's more of what geometry is really about. You don't just find these perfect squares and pentagons and hexagons within real geometry when you're attempting to program something or to create something that is organic, right? So let me go back to our Phi Aqua screen here. All right, so I'm assuming that we're on the Phi Aqua screen. If someone can go ahead and confirm that, that would be great. So what we've done is we've gotten that 7 symmetry, that 7 level symmetry from the crystals, and we've been able to actually create fractals of those components. So that's in the device. I won't get into the big details of how that works right now. And then you have this magnetic field generator that is inside the device. And what that does is it just makes everything fluffy. That's the easiest way to explain it, without getting too technical, is that when things are in a magnetic field, it's a lot easier for them to arrange themselves because gravity doesn't have as much of an effect. So that is inside of the device. So you have those also the precise constructions and harmonic calculations. And that's actually one of the biggest things to me. And it's because, like, when I went to the internet and I tried to find things that were related to frequencies, and this has been going on for years, or frequencies of the chakras. Supposedly NASA had a paper out that was about frequencies of different parts of the body. So when I would go and try to find that stuff, I just find so much conflicting information, especially with the chakras. So what we did was we brought in a specialist. It's a guy that's been working for 20 years in the field of frequencies to give us the true knowledge about frequencies and to help us build that side of the device. So that way we're pushing out the exact frequencies in the exact nanometers. And I found that frequencies are actually calculated most of the time behind the zero. So you're not talking about just 528 hertz. You would be saying something like 528.35 or 36 hertz was where the resonance actually truly is. So that kind of technical stuff, which a lot of people are, they don't have the equipment. They don't even have generally the knowledge to understand that kind of thing. So they just kind of wing it. And that's okay. But what this does is it's not winging it. It has exactly what's supposed to be there. And also this, where I say this unique heptagonal design, and because that's what it's all about with this device, is that it's using the perfect mathematics of the spectrum, the phi, the prism, the spiral, etc. And that comes out to these numbers. And that's why we don't really see too many devices actually that are in this shape, because it becomes a little bit difficult when you're doing certain calculations about the size of things, because the number generally can't be divided evenly into zero. So you have to do these different kind of mathematical equations, but that gets it all perfect and resonating properly. So that's what we're dealing with the device itself. And then we'll have this articles and knowledge base that will actually teach people step by step. And these are a few samples, but this one says, this will be the 5 life form of the week. We'll be looking into other life forms that actually have this geometric structure within them vividly. We'll be breaking down monatomics again, which is something I'm going to talk about here in a moment, about what we've done with monatomics and what happened before and where we're at now with that. We'll be talking about the crystal geometry. So we'll be talking about every single thing that is within the device. And then we'll be supporting these articles with all of the empirical and scientific data behind the concept itself. So that way, when you're trying to explain this to someone or trying to explain it to yourself, you have more to do that with than just me saying, hey, this is what this does. Okay. And so the next thing that we're going to be looking at here is and so actually, let me just show this page here. And it is a page that basically shows you where that is in the device, like where are those different apparatuses and parts in the device. And there's a little bit more to be done here just as far as copyright things. So this is also stuff that still needs to be finished. And once it's complete and once we roll out this next phase, then this site will be open for everyone. This site will be open for everyone, and you can get the information and things you need, get the information, start spreading the word if you wish. And also there is auxiliary input. Even the benefits that I told you on the first page are not all the things that the device could do. It's just that once we really saw the ability of what we could do when we start getting to our programming, and then a lot of the stuff we had already put so much work into it. So we were like, why not add that? It's not even a fraction of what we just did. So this is what you would be looking at is you also will be able to input your own tones and frequencies, your own voice, etc., inside and embedded within the water if you have a use for something like that, because there was just no reason not to add something like that. So the next page we're going to go to, and again, this is just a sneak peek, is actually the monatomics. Now, anyone knows me, they know that we pretty much pioneered the whole idea of liquid monatomics. And what happened is that, farther along into the process of monatomics and us dealing with the laboratory in Switzerland, not only were they, because, they needed to make money, they actually were dealing in the agricultural business for a while, actually even to this day. And the agricultural business in Europe is huge. So they were producing monatomics in order to grow crops faster, right? And, with higher mineral densities and these kind of things. So the owner of that organization, monatomics was kind of his pet project. And when I first found out that, this guy was even going to get involved in something like that, I reached out to him. And that's kind of how we started Realm Dynamics. And, we started these monatomics. And as I began to study monatomics more and more, I realized that there was basically 2 different kind of monatomics. There were charged monatomics, and then there was just the regular monatomics. But because there's psychoactive properties to charged monatomics, then most people don't actually provide charged monatomics. And then what you also are dealing with is primarily with everything that you're talking about particles. So this would be colloids or colloidals. This would be monatomics. And this could be anything where you're trying to dissolve a metal within water or within a liquid. There's going to be a particle size. And the smaller those particles are, actually, the more they can have an actual effect on the person. So there's a lot of companies out right now that they actually brag about having a very high particle size, because they're like, yeah, you could prove that there's silver in here, or there's gold in here because our particles are this size, and they name this big particle. But the truth is that actually this is not bigger is better when it comes to dealing with things like monatomics and elements that are supposed to get into the cellular level of the human being. It's actually the smaller, because if it's too big, it can't actually get into the cell walls. And that was the whole thing about monatomics, because monatomics produce a particle, even diatomics produce a particle small enough to get into the cells. But unfortunately, just as we were gaining some steam, and I was myself figuring out what kind of formulas we needed to be using, and actually in certain cases no formulas, like how we just needed one pure element like ruthenium or whatever in a bottle. That was when the owner decided that he could no longer go along with the venture because it wasn't really making any money for them, that people really weren't interested in monatomics. And on top of that, the monatomics were quite expensive. So, and it's just because they had to dedicate an entire lab that has all this sophisticated equipment into creating something that they generally don't create. And they had to order all these different things. And so it was short-lived. And the monatomics from that laboratory, the last ones are actually available on our site. And once those monatomics are gone, then they'll be gone. However, another thing happened, and it just happened kind of on a humbug. I contacted a guy that was in Canada that actually was a designer of different kind of laboratory devices. And I found out that he actually worked or actually went to school with a long time ago. He went to school with Patrick Flanagan. So he starts going on and on and on about, the different things of what Flanagan had ended up discovering and how he had taken freed up all the electron particles on a piece of silicone and led the silica and actually allowed those 63 panels to be free, or 64 panels to be free. And that's what the main driving point of why megahydrate can actually knock down the ORP levels, or like they do, and start the whole regeneration process. And then as we're talking more and more, I started asking him questions, and he said, I started asking him about monatomics. He said, I built a device that does that. Now it's not cheap, but I have a device that has a particle size, which I can show you the laboratory testings and everything, that is the smallest particle size. So long story short, I ended up acquiring the device. I felt like it was more than worth it. I felt like it wasn't just a humbug, that I ran into this guy that actually had the device. And right off, obviously, I started to administer to myself, right? The chief guinea pig. And I was amazed at and I even have one of my good friends here, Life. And just some of the things that were happening within that 3-day period of just the trials behind the monatomics, we knew we had something. So I said, you know what? This is a perfect thing to bolt onto Phi Aqua, because we now have these liquid monatomics that people can either use just for their own properties, or they can actually add into their water mixture of what they're programming to increase energetic potential, or to steer the perception one direction or another. So that's the short story of what's going on with the monatomics, how we'll be providing those now, and then how our laboratory is now developing monatomics. So we move on here to the final thing, because obviously people are going to ask, well, no, Phi Aqua doesn't purify water. No, it's not a water purifier. We didn't want to go in that direction. And it's just because there are so many ways to get water that's pure enough to program. We felt like that we should just place the emphasis on programming the water, because trying to create something to purify the water is a bit more intensive. And, it's just more to manufacture, more to manage. And so the first thing is that, just so everyone knows, that you can take bottled water right out of the store. Phi Aqua is not to quench your thirst, meaning like it's not to, drink huge. You can make as much water as you want, but it's not a device that's designed with a vessel that's this big to where, just drinking all this water. Actually, 300 milliliters is pretty much all you need. And even that you can start sipping on to really start getting the benefits of what's going on with what you've done in the water. And because of that, also, now that we had it down now to a 300 milliliter vessel, that also meant that, if you bought some really good water, like let's say if it was just distilled water, you could use bottled water, reverse osmosis water, then that would be good enough. But, there's always people who are trying to take it a step further, or they have certain doubts about this. And also, if anyone has any questions, remember that we're going to have a session at the end of the conversation to where you can actually ask those questions, or if you have any comments. So what happened is that we decided, because when we started working with water, and that's be some of the things that you'll be seeing here in this upcoming media footage, is we took water all the way to this different level. It's almost like we found out how cold fusion is possible. And it's just because I started personally, and I always say we, because we is how you make something small look big, by the way. That'll be something that we teach people later on, is about, when you're beginning and it's just you, the best thing to do is to say we, especially if you're talking to like a company or something, and well, we need Because if you say, if I need, they're gonna be like, we're not gonna call this guy back. So say we, you get used to that, even if it's just you. So when I say we, a lot of times I feel it's a collective, breath is we. So just in case somebody's saying, well, who's we? Who is he talking about? It's everything, right? And so what happens is that when we started looking into water even more, like my main thing was like, so what about ultra pure water? Because I was like on this whole ultra pure water kick. And I started to acquire the devices that are necessary to take water in through that process of removing everything from it. And in that, I actually came into contact with a company which produces those devices for hospitals and for laboratories. And so I'm just asking them all the novice questions, like they can't get enough of me, right? So I'm asking all these questions about ultra pure water and why can't you drink it and blah, blah, blah. And so I learned a lot about water. I know a lot about water now. And one of the main things is that actually there's something that is kind of obvious that people don't think about. But if you purify water to the point where there's nothing, you eventually get to hydrogen. And hydrogen is a fuel. So this kind of lets you know you can't drink hydrogen. So this kind of lets you know that water actually has a whole nother stage that it can reach. So it would be kind of logical why there's a stage to water that you actually can't drink, because the energetic potential behind the water and the level of combustion, et cetera, and bonding that's in the water, that if you drunk that, it would literally be like drinking something that would vacuum all of the minerals really out of the system. The more pure the water is, the more it's what we call thirsty water. And thirsty water is looking for anything to bond with and anything to basically get around and to form a bond with. That's basically what you're looking at. And the interesting thing we found is that when we subjected water to a vacuum, which was basically taking it down to 4 atmospheres. Like when you put water into a vacuum, they take it down to atmospheres. So we took it down 4 atmospheres. And we found that water began to boil. And actually, many think that it's boiling, but what it actually is it's releasing the last active particles and gases. And once those are gone, the water starts to freeze. And then what you're left with is this, what you would say is ultra pure water. And it literally has some energetic potential to it. So it was amazing to finally get to the point to where I was able to actually finally hold some ultra pure water. And of course, I did take a little sip. And what I found was it had no taste, zero. And that's because all the taste that even bottled water, spring water, all that taste is actually minerals. In addition to that, if you notice, like let's say in the Intel factory, they're cleaning chips with water. But if you pour water on your computer, you know what's going to happen, right? So how could they clean those chips with water? And it's because that water is deionized. There's no ions in it. There's no minerals. Because that's what gives conductivity to water, is that there's some minerals in there. And so when you dump that on the keyboard, that little electrical current is able to go into, for those who don't know about this, that little electrical current is able to then short out the entire board. But when you're using deionized mineral-free water, you can pour it on that same board, and actually that becomes a way of cleaning it. So many people, they call those, I think it's what is that? Ionizer, ionized cleaner, like basically something that cleans things through ionization, right? So you can clean circuit boards, you can buy these things off of Amazon. Some people clean jewelry with them. There's huge industrial versions of them where they even clean, paint off bumpers and pieces of equipment. They use these ultrasonic frequencies. And so basically tapping into that science behind water and, I guess, science, we'll just use that term today, right? It's all language. So what it actually brought things to is that we started making this water because once I'm skipping around here, but my idea, the reason why I wanted to create ultra pure water was just not to drink ultra pure water, because I knew a long time ago that you couldn't drink it, especially in any big quantities. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to restructure from there. Like I wanted to start off with nothing. It had never coming, everything that was in it would be gone. And then I would start building from there. I would basically what they call seed the water. And this is when you put, you start off with, like, let's say silver, which brings up the conductivity again. And then you start seeding the water with gold, zinc, And then basically you're building this compound, and then the water becomes this amazing water. And that amazing water we call programmable water. Programmable water has a conductivity that is 3 to 4 times higher than tap water. So this means that this water it's already balanced, so it's not going to leach anything, but it's already super energized for whatever that you're going to do with it. So it's more receptive. So that's what you're looking at here is the programmable water that we're also supplying with the Phi Aqua device as one of the consumables. And then last but not least, you see then the lineup here as it is now. Like obviously there are things to change, and then we're going to be talking about things to add, and we're going to be talking about the resonator here in just a moment. But this is the basis of what's happening right now at Phi Aqua. So let me go ahead and put my camera back on here. Let's see here. Stop the share. All right, so I guess they got me back on camera here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take a moment to go ahead and refresh myself. I'm going to go ahead and let everyone do the same thing. And once we do that, then we're going to come forward and we're going to go ahead and get into the next part of this presentation, the other half, and that's about ambassador training, and which is something amazing that we're going to be doing. We're going to talk also about the final device for today, which is actually resonators. It's something that I want to let everyone enjoy being able to understand of what else we're actually coming out with here and how that's going to benefit others. So there we go. So let me go ahead and let's see. How would I do this here? I guess I would just leave it on. Let me just look through these chats really briefly here, because sometimes there's some things that get out of line. Let me just look through here. And so we're going to go ahead and take 10 minutes. So if everyone wants to, or anyone wants to take a break, this would be a really good time. You can go and get some water, and we'll be here. Okay, there's some really good questions in here. So I would love to take the last part of today's show and to discuss any questions related to Phi Aqua. And yeah, okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and refresh myself, and I'll be here in just a moment. Let's see. Okay, I assume that that's enough time. I had to go to the Superman on the shirt and just change it out real quick. All right, so let me see. Unmute myself, okay. All right, so it seems like I'm unmuted. And I'll first confirm that everyone can hear me before I go ahead and get started with the second half. All right, everyone says that they're hearing me loud and clear. I'm just loving this so far. I haven't seen any massive hiccups. So the last thing that I wanted to show that's in related to what we're producing, and obviously there are some questions about Phi Aqua, and we'll get to those questions towards the end of the conversation today. And so yeah, let me show. And by the way, everything that I'm showing here, this is like I said earlier. Don't forget the first part of the conversation. There's Phi Aqua is manufacturing. Phi Aqua is a division of Spiritech, and the products that are being manufactured here, we're able to offer at exceptional commissions. And we can do that now because we're actually producing it. And producing it means actually going through the process of manufacturing. And there is a part in ambassador training, which we're going to be talking about here in a moment. There's a part in ambassador training that actually talks about manufacturing. It talks about injection molding, thermal forming, 3D printing, and those different aspects, just so that the person at least understands, what are the difference between these technologies, SLA, FDM, and, if you're looking to create something, what direction to go. And because of the ambassador program, you actually have direct access to me to ask those questions in those sessions. Then it makes for a great opportunity for a person that is in the position of developing something and they need to get that information now. Likewise, there's a lot of stuff that I learn every single day. People they always tell me, hey man, what software should I use, or what camera should I buy, or, because I know that all that stuff. And they're right. I have to, if I'm going to buy something, I'm not going to waste my money. It's not going to be obsolete tomorrow. It's going to definitely work. So all those things, I may spend 2 or 3 days researching something, calling somebody or whatever, just to make sure it works. And then if I don't have access to that kind of support, then I'll try it out. And in many different areas, I've tried everything out until I found something that actually works. So that'll be a part of ambassador training, but we'll talk about that here in just a moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this share screen on, and let's go back to our screen over here. And there we are. In this video, now this may be a little bit sketchy, by the way, in Facebook Live. I tried this yesterday, and I'm not sure if it's just because Facebook Live has a little issue with people actually playing videos over the top of something that's streaming, maybe because of copyright reasons. But let me go ahead and play this. Okay, there we are. All right, so you won't hear the sound to this, but what I'm showing you right now is I'm showing you um, the resonators, right? So what it is that, and this idea started with just a realization that what most environments are lacking is fertility. There's a fertility frequency, a fertility component. And that's actually the component that makes you feel happy. It makes you feel satisfied. It makes you feel attracted. You know, that kind of energy, when it's moving through the air, it actually causes friendship. It causes lack of arguments, etc. And you know, there's been many energies that are actually in the spiritual matters of things that are associated or trying to associate themselves with that. But it really does break down to specific shapes, specific frequencies. Some people are aware of the divine feminine, etc. So what we looked at is we started looking at, well, what do people really need the most of in their environments, and by what means can we put that there? And what came from that is this idea of these resonators and how we can take cymatics and we can pulse cymatics with specific frequencies. And what that will do is it will literally keep sending that frequency into the environment. So you can either put something on top of a resonator, you can put a resonator under your bed, you can sit on top of a resonator. There's different things. I'm sure people will come up with different things that they can do at resonators. What we're doing is we're just making it available. And I think uh, as long as you do that, it's the same thing to me with Phi Aqua. It's like, you know, when you start getting into making claims with people, then I think that's when they start trying to deny what those claims are within. So if you're like telling somebody that they can actually accomplish something with something, then they'll kind of test and say, well, let me see if I could do that, or if it doesn't work. I bet it doesn't work. And of course, when you're dealing with subtle things anyway, like water is very subtle, the last thing you really want to do is start sending in the doubts. So we felt it was best to not really make any claims, to present all the knowledge, the information, and the evidence of what the frequencies do, but not to just jump out and say this could do this can do that, this can do that, because really it can actually do anything, because that's the realm that we're actually in right now with frequencies, is that there's frequencies for anything. There's a time and place for everything, right? And the easiest way to understand this is that if you've seen, let's say, the sky as just one huge disk of frequencies, you know that different times in the sky create different kind of moods and different kind of feelings. So if you can emulate the frequencies that are associated with those moods and those feelings, you would literally be bringing it into that space. And there's nothing that can absorb that more than water. And that's why we're like these huge receptacle water sacs that are taking in all these vibrations and tones. And that is enough to change our awareness, to allow us to see things and allow us to experience things that are coming down those same channels. So what I'm showing you now is the actual process of me actually just milling out a resonator, and how this is the kind of stuff that I'm doing behind the scenes, and that we're getting to behind the scenes with Phi Aqua. Let me just turn this down. That's all right. So let's take a look at this real quick. So what I'm doing here is there's obviously a whole part that comes before this, which is basically the programming of the board itself. But this is actually the circuit board that goes inside, one of the circuit boards that actually goes inside the device to allow it to accomplish what I just explained to you. And so what we look at is we don't just look at something like, okay, well, this cymatic actually has this level of power. Okay, so that means that if we just print it out and put it on the floor somewhere, then it'll actually do what it does. Like, there's other properties to that, and those properties actually are based on electronics. Those properties are based on resonance. The kind of material that's actually being used, the environment that it's being put in. It has something to do with the housing also, because like speakers, the technology within speaker housings, like how the house is actually set up inside a speaker, actually controls the tones, controls the vibrations and the resonance. So that's the kind of stuff that we'll put the real kind of the tech um, the tech know-how into. And then what we'll end up with is we'll end up with something that actually is able to bring about the phenomenon. Get my chat here real quick, to bring about the phenomena that we're looking for, but we haven't done that with just this half-hearted, like, well, this, it should work. Like, we don't want to deal at all with it should work. We deal with it does work, because we know when it does work, then it ensures that we're able to actually get every single thing done that we need to get done, right? So this is again, this is a resonator milling out. It's almost done here. This is done at actually a very high speed. Believe it or not, this generally takes about 27 minutes, probably about 28 minutes to mill out the front and back of a board. And then this, of course, is just only the beginning, because now all those spots that you're seeing on the right are filled with resistors, capacitors, and different things that are necessary to pulse. And there's obviously batteries that allow it to pulse and do what it needs to do on a consistent basis. So this was the thing. Honestly, this is literally living the dream, because I always thought in my life that there could be such better applications for what we've learned, and that the evil wasn't necessarily in the technology, it was how we're using the technology. And so to get to this point, to link with people, because obviously there's people that I have to form relationships with, and even business relationship, personal relationships with, in order to create certain things, especially like this. You know, a lot of times people will tell you, hey, no, that can't be done. And, you know, or why? So you get some people that just refuse to do it, you know, so there's a lot of different things that you actually experience. And then it all gets you to a point where, hey, it finally gets created and you're like, okay, this is really happening. So that's just a quick video on a resonator and kind of what it consists of. Let me go ahead and put my camera back on here, because what I really want to talk about now is I actually want to talk about the ambassador program, the aspirants program, and what that really is, and how that changes things from where we go here. So give me just a moment. Let me go ahead and stop the share. There we go. All right. So I should be back on camera. If someone wants to confirm that, then that would be great. And then let me go ahead and just move my notes over here. And let me get up in my seat a little bit, because this is the success meeting. Like, it's really happening. I mean, it's a lot of work. Like, for me, there's still a lot of work for me to do when I get off the call, and you know, every single moment. And some people think it's almost like, and nobody can be that busy. And it's just strange. Like, I actually spent this last week without even almost 30 minutes in between me having to do the next task. And then also having a lot of stuff that just runs behind from a personal level, like just calling my friends, you know, those kind of things. Some of my friends are mad at me right now. And, you know, it's just because that I know that when somebody calls me and they tell me that they have an issue, and everyone's my friend, to tell you the truth. Like, I don't have it, because I don't have enemies. So in that case, when I know that there's an issue, I know that I can't solve your issue by just my conversation. I know everything about words, but I'm not very big on words. I'm big on action. So what happens though is that I know that every 2 hours I waste, every 30 minutes I waste until I see my sovereignty is actually, it somehow calculates to me in my mind. And some people may say that's a bit fanatical. Excuse me, that sound like it dipped out for a minute, but it calculates in my mind that I'm not really serious. And I don't know, that's just something that I've always had back there that drives me to go hours and hours with trying to get something to accomplish, even in piercing through that. It's just you know, sometimes, and you're responsible for doing this whole long list of work that needs to be done. Like, even with something like a resonator, there's a cymatic, and, you know, we have the only cymatic software on the internet, right? And so there was even securing the whole partnership, and then to eventually bought the software from the initial guy. And it was me emailing him for 2 years before he finally emailed me back and said, hey kid, I'll just sell it to you. I don't even deal with that anymore. So just all those steps that it took to just finally get to this point, to where all that's even on a board, to where it can pump out, and that's the application, that's how it's supposed to come out. And those are the processes that you actually can't film. It's like, you're not going to be sitting there with a selfie stick like, look, I'm facing trouble over here with the Form Labs printer. Now I got to send it back to the US, and it's going to cost me $800, which I could have bought a whole nother printer with. You know, you're not going to go for the play-by-play. But what I'm starting to realize now is, not only do people want the play-by-play, but there are many people that they've kind of encountered things already, or they want to actually do something, and they kind of need that playbook, because that's what that really is. They need that playbook so that they know, okay, well, when this happens, or to prevent this from happening, this is what I need to do. So that actually brings us to ambassador and aspirant training, because one of the things that we've done now And this whole new rollout is I needed to actually focus, obviously for obvious reasons. I needed to focus get in focus many of the endeavors that we're already engaged in, because obviously there's secret energy. There's supposed, there needs to be a new show coming soon. The University is coming. Right, semester 3 is here in July. So at a certain point, because you need to keep focusing things more, there would be a point where you would need to merge certain things. So I started sitting down and I say, well, you can't go in every direction. You need to know right now, what direction are you really going to go into? Let's sit down, let's think about that. And that's how I talk to myself and get answers. And so what happened is I started realizing that the most important thing for all of us was to get sustainable, financially especially. That every problem that I'm hearing from everyone and all the stuff they even want to talk to me about when we get on the phone still somehow steers around, if we don't become a very strong resource of financial currency, then not only can we not solve that problem, we're going to actually have some problems ourselves. And if for one moment, though, because if you can't figure out money, you can't definitely figure out the ninth heaven. If for one moment, though, we took Megamind and just focused Megamind for one moment to figuring out the whole matrix money thing, then maybe we would actually begin to be able to get around more people and be able to have more time to get on the phone and say, hey, I just want to connect with you. What's going on? I love you. Maybe you would have a little bit more time. So one of the big parts of that to me is developing everything that we're developing so far, so that way we can see that reality, and seeing that reality is actually getting people now trained to not only represent these products, but first be successful and be fulfilled. So the training that I got, I was young and I walked into a boiler room kind of environment, and there was all these old heads teaching me how to be in the boiler room. They used to call themselves the guns, because if you just point and shoot them, then they could actually get anything accomplished. And so I learned how to be a gun, to where if I was representing something, how to represent that with allowing the person who I was representing it to really feel that there was something worth it in what I was doing. Let me check this. Okay. I guess everyone, I'm sure, can hear me. And just was giving me some kind of notification over here. So that training is key. It's almost like mentorship. It's like someone literally teaching you how to make your way in the world. Because if you don't know how to do that, and people who don't know how to do that generally kind of sit at the house all day, and then when they want to get something accomplished, they kind of they don't know how to tell people what they want. So then what happens is that they send off these mixed signals, and so they come back and they feel all hurt, and they're like, man, I can't seem to get anything happening. And it's just because someone didn't take time with them and spend time with them and teach them, hey, these are the ropes in life. And I find that there's a lot of younger people that actually tap into the platform, tap into the message. And what I want to be for them is I do want to be that mentor that gives them the information of what they need to make it in the 21st century. And how I want to do that actually is first by teaching that there is a way that you always have to be aware of. You don't want to form a vampiric relationship with anything. You always want to have a symbiotic relationship. So for me, anytime I was ever asking someone to actually do something for me, I always had a load of things that I could really do for them. I would do my own research. I wouldn't come right away and say something like, basically tell me something that was in the last recording that they just made that they completely explained. It's like, you need to know exactly what questions to ask. You need to you have to be sharp, because then when you're sharp, then when a person that actually can do something for you sees that, they see themselves. And they're like, man, even if they can't help you, don't want to help you or whatever, they can't do that to themselves. So they're like, man, he's at least trying, or she's at least trying. All right, here, okay, come over to my house tomorrow. We'll talk about it. Because then what you'll be doing is that still those people, everyone needs some level of assistance. Like, it's when you're developing new things and new ideas, more hands, the better. But if you're bringing on people actually that are not trained to do anything and can't do anything, then you can't bring on people like that. And very successful people are professionals at spotting that kind of person a mile away, because they have to be. They cannot get their time wasted, right? So what we want to do is we want to give people that skill set and that ability that piques the interest of whatever they're in front of, so they can keep getting the sovereignty faster. Only thing that we're doing here is we're chopping down time. We still know what the goal is. When we set the goal at sovereignty, then that now is you can focus on that, and then you can head in that direction. And anything in your way that has to do with you getting there, then you'll actually be able to get the response and the channeling necessary to go ahead and make it through, right? But first, for especially many of the young bucks, there needs to be some trainings. Either daddy wasn't around, society is all whacked out, or most of the time they just have to just wing it themselves. And, or maybe just mom was there, mom's training, but matrix training versus mom's training may be two different things, and probably is two totally different things. So they need that training. So what we've done is we've opened up, and let me go ahead and pull up this page here and then go ahead and get my screen share back on. We've opened up a new area in Spiritech. And let me see, screen share this screen over here. And what that is ambassador training. Now, if anyone's been to the Spiritech site recently, they'll see there's been some upgrades. I literally had to spend some time and actually tightening this thing down because of what we're doing right now. One second. There the share screen is. Okay, so I had to do some tightening down on the Spiritech website, especially since it's going to be getting rather live over here. I've built in some more functionality, especially being able to get in touch with us right away if you have a question over here. This will be eventually live with someone as soon as we can find someone adequate enough to staff that. And then one of the biggest things that we are doing now is I'm going to be launching off now, beginning, it's going to be 6 classes, 3 months, the ambassador program. And what this does is it literally gives you knowledge on basically the height of the different things that you're going to need to know to be successful, not only in business, not only in representing Spiritech products, whatever, but really in life. Now, again, this is not secret energy, so this doesn't have to do with predominantly this whole spiritual emphasis, codes and letters to words, cultures, stars, those kind of things. Although a lot of the pillars of that world does cross into this one. This is primarily about, one, matrix mechanics. And what matrix mechanics is it basically gives you all of the knowledge about what kind of codes to punch into the matrix to get the result that you're looking for. Okay, so this training, the ambassador training that you're looking at here, is about becoming a successful entrepreneur. And right away, I had to regress for a moment because somebody may have saw that price. Oh no, price. Okay. First of all, the specialist program is always free. It has always been free. It will always be free. The aspirant program we're going to talk about in just a minute. But the ambassador program actually gives you access to live courses and things to where you can interface and talk about your unique situation in the scenario where we allow that, and then get solutions to your unique situation. However, what goes on in those live sessions is still shared to aspirants and specialists. It will just be archived. You cannot join the live class because the live classes are just for the ambassadors, but you will be able to see what went on in that meeting and learn what was going on in that meeting. But again, there is a big perk to actually being there live because, nothing's like being live, right? So you got 6 classes, you got 3 months. This actually starts with its first orientation on May 21st. So we're getting it going fast because I know already what I'm doing, and I already have it laid out of how it needs to be done. So there's no real need in actually delaying it any longer. And then the first one we can get done, and then there'll be another orientation process, and then we'll go through another one again in the time that's allotted. But then at least that entire curriculum, if you may, will be available for aspirants and specialists that are just coming into the system that want to know about different things in relation to their own success. But again, the ambassador program also has other perks. That's why it's a consistent thing. So I'm going to go ahead and explain a little bit about what goes on in the ambassador training. And as I said earlier, it's actually the matrix mechanics first. This lets you know basically the ropes to how the reality really works. Predominantly, actually, what you learn before matrix mechanics is you learn how to actually position your mind properly for what you need to do. We talked about it a little bit today about sovereignty, getting rid of this whole idea that you don't need money, all the extra programming that's gone on that's actually keeping you away from success. We address the root to those programs so that way it's highlighted for you. And then through the program, you actually get the ability to dissolve those areas, and it just makes sense to you, right? Because that's what we're basically doing. Deprogramming is literally unprogramming yourself from bad habits and things that are getting you nowhere. And generally for a person for that to happen for them, they kind of need to be coerced to do that. So ambassador training takes you through the steps of being able to do that to yourself. We talk about social media marketing because this is pretty much the strongest component out right now, period. If you can't do it on social media and you still have a brick and mortar, then really, like, either you're not going to be seeing the numbers that you want to see, or your marketing strategies are going to be all off. Social media is where it's at, and many people already have social media accounts and things set up. So we're going to be talking about like what goes on behind the scenes in social media and how to make it work for you. We're going to be talking about business and brand mentorship, and this is basically your understanding your idea, your area where you're at, and then giving you the pointers that are necessary to go ahead and make that happen, letting you know what is the sequence, not only what needs to happen next, but what is the sequence that you need to really start following in order to get that done and realized. Also, one of the main perks of the ambassador program is it actually jumps the immediate commissions up on the items that are commissionable, which are basically now all Phi Aqua products when they're developed, all University products, She Legit. There's actually a list of products that person who has the ambassador credentials are in their system will actually be boosted up on those products, 15% commission. So basically what we're saying is any costs associated with being an ambassador will more than likely be covered within them just upping their commissions. And if you notice here, and I'll just go to this page really briefly, the store that's actually associated with the ambassador program is actually not Secret Energy anymore. Like, obviously for specialists, everything is tied into Secret Energy. That's how it is now. But for this next phase of what we want to do with ambassadors and inspirants is we need something that is always going to functions very fast, and also there's no distractions. And for some reason, Secret Energy is not fitting all those categories right now. Like, we are working with Secret Energy. Just remember, Secret Energy is a very large site. There are thousands of social network members in Secret Energy. There's a chat. There's all these resources that take, these very expensive servers to run every single month. And through that process, though, because there's also a lot of programming and code behind there, it crashes from time to time, and it gets finicky from time. It gets really slow. Like, I'm sure everyone's experienced at some point in time trying to open a Secret Energy page, and it's just a little slow in getting open. Now, obviously, it's amazing site. It has lots of information, so it will be there. But when we're talking about doing things ultra professionally, so that way when you see other people will be depending on their specialist links, or person that's trying to go and see a product from their specialist link to get it to them as fast as possible. This is again what the ambassador and the aspirants program is really about, is to cover all those bases for those ambassadors and those aspirants. So what we've done is this store is actually in the app also. So if a person is sharing leaks through the app, which we're going to be opening up some new areas in there also to do that, then a person actually just going to the store inside their app or inside their mobile device can be done, and then it will track it all the way through. So this store is actually the actual predominant store now, and also Phi Aqua products will be listed in this store. So generally what we'll do at a certain point is there's Phi Aqua as the website, but for a person that is selling Phi Aqua products, then it will go through this store, because this store will have all the affiliations, but everything will be set up accordingly, and it allows us to do that. So a little bit further into this, we'll now talk about the aspirants, because we've given some on the ambassadors, and it's just one of those things to where if you can do it and you need that kind of mentorship and support in relation to your own endeavors in business and entrepreneurship, and we all know that are working in the entrepreneur level, that you invest in yourself, you invest in your knowledge. That's now available. It starts May 21st. There it is, and you can get to that by clicking plans and pricing on the Spiritech pricing on the Spiritech website. So moving from there, we have the other part, which I call the aspirant program. And what that is for those who, there's all these startups, right? There's these young and up and comings, I call them. And while they are probably already, a lot of them are already specialists, they kind of want to take it to that next level. They need a bit more integration in around what they're doing, but maybe even the $79 a month is not really something that they can do right now for different reasons. So What we're giving those people an opportunity to do, or those specialists opportunity to do, is actually sign up to be aspirants. And when you sign up to be an aspirant, that you can actually make your own offer. There is a minimum and there is a maximum, I guess, but you make your own offer of basically what you can afford. It's not so much as what you think it's worth, but how much that is really going to work out for you. And what you get access to is, you don't get access to the live courses. So remember, there's still a whole different thing going on with Ambassadors Live, but you actually get access to the support groups. In fact, what we're going to be doing with aspirants is we're going to be linking aspirants in support groups with ambassadors, people that, such as Eddie and Keyshawn, Bobby, people who've been into the specialist program for quite a bit of time, since its inception even, and knows exactly how it works, and knows exactly, how things how, basically you get a support group. And this is done generally via mobile devices. So, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, you always have that contact. And there's actually quite a few different perks that I'm not mentioning here, and I'll just try to get to those as I go. But obviously, the ambassador program does also include those that access to those live groups. And there's also a part of ambassador certification that occurs in the end. And what that does is that we basically, there's some courses that teach you everything about products, or the surface of what you need to know about the products that we carry. So it's enough for you to go out and be able to represent those products properly. And in that, oh geez, I kind of skipped my mind a little bit, but yeah, this thing's loaded with features here. Just give me a moment, I'll remember. So basically, just continuing to go on here, you have access as ambassadors to the live courses. You have access to the commission raise. You have access to the mentorship programs, matrix mechanics, etc. And then you also have access to being able to receive the leads. And that's what it is. There's obviously leads coming in all the time. They could come in a lot more. All we have to do is blow the whistle. And it's basically the vibratory analysis forms that people fill out and basically ask us, hey, in the condition that I'm in right now, what should I really be doing? And that leads me to writing another note here. Okay. It's got to trying to remember everything at once. So in that, when people are sending those leads in, then approved ambassadors will actually get those leads. So you'll have more to work with as far as people who, need your support. And so that's another major thing about that. So continuing here, and we're almost done. Like, this is almost finished. I'm getting to that point too. It's like, okay, this is a lot. I just need to digest. So the final part of this is to also understand that what aspirants receive is they receive a raise of 12% in commission. So we also do want to push those aspirants to eventually become ambassadors. So we are raising their commissions, and they do have access to now that new site, what goes on inside the app, etc. Also, for everyone, specialists, aspirants, ambassadors alike, premium marketing materials. I'm going to be working in here. Even one of the parts of the courses for ambassadors is to talk very briefly about when you're setting up design work, because a lot of us have to do our own design work. Have you ever given someone something and say, hey, this is what I want it to look like, and then you get back something totally different? Let me stop this screen share and go ahead and go back to my main screen. Meaning, have you ever said, hey, I'm going to get someone to make some banners for me, and then even pay them, and then you get back these banners and you're like, this is not, I could even did this with a logo program. So there's a part about just that whole process of how you use guidance from other designs, especially people who've already spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on marketing, how you can go and find that material, and then how it becomes very easy, even if you either need to create it yourself or get someone else to create it, how to bring that to them and then get what you want. So we're going to be talking about that. And those are the kind of tools and tips that we're going to be giving that really allow a person to kind of see why last time things didn't work out right, and then why they should have used that method, because that's something that I had to go through. So where we're at is we're coming to the close of this, and then also we still have the questions to actually answer. And the questions, the last thing I wanted to bring up is regimens. And let me just share the screen really briefly. What we've done is we're doing work like this more. And let me just get it up here on the screen. And meaning that we want to start to simplify, obviously, everything that we're presenting. And just give me one quick moment. I'm going to bring something here up on the screen. And because when someone comes into just a lot of information or just a lot of products or whatever, they kind of literally need to know where to go. And it's generally very specific. It's actually narrowed down to the big three, but it's very specific kind of what people are looking for. And when you can just say, hey, over here, this is it, then that's kind of like what you will want to do. You wouldn't want them to spend a long time in trying to find something, because obviously a person can get very frustrated and then stop looking altogether. So if you notice, like right here, this is some of the changes that you'll see being made and that are being made in the regimens area now in secret energy. And some may, want to listen to this because, especially if you're a specialist, because you can generate sub IDs. What we've done, sub IDs are basically when you can take a product and you can put that product under one link. So instead of sharing just your specialist link, which gets the person right to the first page of the store, and then from there, as they browse anything they buy, you get commissions for. You can use a sub ID to link a person specifically to a product. And the benefit of that is you can just write a quick Facebook post on a product. Oh, this does great for XYZ. And then you can put your specialist link in there and send a person directly to that product, versus you tell a person about something and then you send them just your regular sub ID, or excuse me, your regular specialist link. And then they come right into the store and they're like, okay, where do I even go? So the reason why this section is set up now is that, as you see in these sections, you have detox, female force, immunity, male stamina, master meditation, mental power, recovery, and remineralization. These are some of the biggest topics of what people are interested in right now. And then what's behind these links is the products that specifically do that. So it makes it very simple for the person, because they literally go in and they just buy the kit, if you may, of what they need, and then they get everything, and then boom, it's done. And also for anyone that is representing the product, it really makes it easy, because it's easier for you to know, because there's a lot of people that are just coming in and they just are seeing all these products and they're like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do with these products? And this helps. Or what am I going to refer to a person? So this helps. Also, you can go through this and just simply ask, when you're asking yourself, hey, what do these different products do? So you can kind of know what they're related to. So that's one of the big changes that has happened, and the changes that we're implementing. That'll be in all stores, including Equid stores, by the end of next week. That is also on the Secret Energy site now for those that want to get started in that. We've also started, and let me see if I can go ahead and pull this up here. We've got now a live section going on inside of the app. And this is because I'm making progress towards actually getting some shows going on. And I guess I can go right here, and this allows me inside the app. You can actually access the app from the desktop of a computer. And ideally, if a person would be logging onto the Secret Energy from a computer, they should be directed into this. But we haven't made that decision yet, just because we want to. There'll be missing some features, but there's a live area here now. And what this live area is going to be is going to be me actually getting in and doing some live stuff. I'm still trying to figure out a few things with this app. Like, is there going to be like a recording, an area here where they can go and tap into previous live shows, etc. But that is one of the new things. And I'm just going down my list of the extras that I needed to mention. And then one of the final ones is that for those who want to know what's going on with the university, that the university is actually going to kick up in July. And that is going to be another amazing time, because we're going to be changing the subjects. Some of the subjects we've actually exhausted. Some of the courses, basic person's got a master in that course now. So to keep having that course over and over doesn't really make any sense. One second, let me just get my screen back up here that has all the stuff on it. Just give me one moment. I'm just trying to find the Zoom screen here. Okay, there it is. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start addressing the questions. So just in conclusion, university semester 3, different kind of setup, especially kind of more hands-on. Like, this is exactly what you do for this. This is how you do this, and that's what's happening with that. So I'm going to go ahead and start this question list here. I'm putting it in front of me now. All right. So I'm starting at the top. And let me see what happens when I push answer live. Okay, I'm not sure exactly what happened. Okay, here you have answered this question live. Okay, so I don't know what just happened, but I guess it may be appearing on your screen or something. I'm not sure, but I'm going to read the question. Questions from Augustus. He asked, Phi Aqua can program water, energize it. Can it be used somehow by someone with negative intentions to program water and use it as a tool for intentions to fulfill? Put it simply, can it be harmful for people of the world if it is placed in the wrong hands? Can this invention be used like putting fluoride in water, just not actually putting it, but make it a destructive frequency structure somehow? I have not enough information about all this, but I think it can be possible. So protection is a must. I am sure you have considered these things, but I want to know, what is your solution for this? Okay, so let me answer this kind of question, which actually comes from a specific kind of state of consciousness. And this is simply this, like, there's anything that's powerful, okay? Anything. And water is powerful. Money is supposedly has some power to it. Gold, children, anything that is powerful can be used for, I guess what you would say, positive or negative effects. So this is like when a person's having a baby, that baby could be trained to do dark and destructive things, or that baby can be used to do amazing things for people, right? And is there any restrictions on having babies? Right? Because we see babies in the world that actually have been trained to do very destructive things. And so what I'm saying is that when you start asking yourself a question about whether what you're developing can be used to do something hurtful to someone, then it's more or less that paranoid state of mind that doesn't realize first that even for a person that's doing that kind of thing, most of the time they block themselves from having any kind of like powerful, beneficial thing around them. It's like the same intention that they're using to try to destroy everything would be the same intention that they put in the water that they drink and that they touch. It would be first inside of their body, that water that they live with would be configured for those malevolent intentions, and that's how they would be living out their life. So it's not for me to actually determine if the device is going in the hands of evil or going in the hands of good people. My job is to make sure that the device actually works. And what we program the device with is positive intentions. That is how we have designed it. And so what we ultimately have done with it, I believe, will prevail. And so that's as much as I can say about that, because I would then be trying to include the result of what 8 billion people could possibly do. And then I'm sure I can come up with any result from that, since there's just such a great level of dynamics here on the planet. So I'm going to answer the next question. It says here, I recently purchased a bottled water that is literally black because of the fulvic trace minerals that were added. Could this be safely experimented with using Phi Aqua device? And that water is called, I believe, black itself. It's actually made with She Legit. And yes, like any water, because the trace minerals and the fulvic acid into the water increases the conductivity. And I'm sure what that company did, excuse me, let me reposition myself here. I'm sure what that company did is they definitely filtered and purified the water before they added that to it. And yeah, so you would be able to use it, just to answer the question. The next question here is, I guess I should put that as done. The next question here is, hi, my name is Skylar, and I've been selling my landscaping business since I was 15. I really enjoy selling things. If you could point me to a sign-up sheet or something to help, I believe that this product, and I'm just paraphrasing here just because I understand what's being said. And I think that this question came in before I went into the Spiritech site. And of course, I explained the free specialist program, the Make It offer for the aspirant, and then also the ambassadors program. So spirittech.com is, of course, where you want to go. So I'll check that as done. Michael Duchesne asks, or Duchesne, or I'll just say Michael. I'll just say first names here so I don't butcher last names here. Is asking, what is the preferred type? Excuse me, one second. There we go. And he's asking, what is the preferred type of water to add to Phi Aqua? And water to me is, again, tiered. Like, obviously, we would recommend a person start with the programmable water, again, because you don't need but 300 milliliters and less. You just need to fill the vessel up to the point to where the magnetic ring is. You don't you don't really need a lot of water. So obviously, we would make the best water that can be put in there in the programmable water. But bottled water, as I mentioned earlier, it would be the standard, like the lowest that you would really want to go. You know, I suppose you could throw tap water in there, but we don't really recommend it. You know, somebody could try it on their own. And then you have kind of the waters from there. You got distilled water that could be mineralized. And then you also have rainwater. There's another water that most people don't think of that is actually really good for these kind of things. Actually, rainwater is naturally distilled. So if you can get a hold of some really good rainwater, then you can use that. And then so those kind of waters, that's what you would really be looking for. And then, you know, obviously very tainted water you wouldn't want to use. We're going to keep going here. This question is now done. The next question here is, how much water should an athlete consume, and this question is coming from MJ. What's up, MJ? And he's definitely one of the brothers that I know is going to be in these groups and really getting that extra oomph to really make it happen. I've already been seeing your videos on YouTube, so I congratulate you for really, you know, pushing out that knowledge and things. So I just wanted to not just read off the question from MJ as if I don't know MJ. So the question here is, how much water should an athlete consume, and how much of the structured water produced from Phi Aqua could and should an athlete use? And what I'll say is, now, first of all, the athlete, the level of water intake, because of course they always have these numbers like 8 ounces or 8 glasses of 16-ounce water, 16-ounce glasses of water, and you know, so they have all these numbers. But what I would say is, what you'll notice is that it's all about really also the condition of your liver, and also the condition of your kidneys, because some people can drink water and then it just kind of comes out within the next 30-40 minutes. Obviously, there's certain types of waters that are more absorbable, and that's actually what structured water is it's easy to be absorbed into the body, so you have to drink less of it. So basically, if you drunk tap water, the surface tension on tap water, it being harder, is difficult to absorb. So a person can drink a whole glass of tap water and then literally go evacuate that water within the next hour, versus if you were drinking some structured water, then that water would almost completely absorb into the body to where you wouldn't even have to go and really use the restroom. You see what I mean? So that has a lot to do with the quality of the water. Now, I'm not going to say you're going to just drink all the water you want. You'll never have to go to the restroom because it's all structured. That's not what I mean. I'm just talking about, that's called water absorption or surface tension. And so the surface tension of the water, the softer the surface tension is, then the more that it absorbs in the body, the less water that you need to drink. But the main indicator that you're looking for is that you feel that you're hydrated. So in the morning, if your tongue is dry, you know, if your eyeballs are squeaking inside the sockets when you look left and right, you need some water. And obviously also athletes need more water because they produce a lot of sweat. And then that sweat is just directly putting the water onto the surface of the body so that it can cool the body down. It's also a great way of detoxing. And as far as with Phi Aqua, so remember, Phi Aqua is basically the water connoisseur. You're drinking this water. This water is already loaded with intentions, and they have different settings on the device, and we can get into those settings in other conversations. There's an energizing setting, there's a manifestation setting. So it really is that you can put the water in your mouth and even get it going under your tongue and then start really absorbing it. It's almost like condensing it into that moment, just like you could do with breath. It's like you could condense it into that moment. And as long as you know, if you're clear, you only need just a little bit of it, versus if it's just one of your sessions, it's one of your quote unquote rituals that you do every morning, you may go in on 300 milliliters of a specific projection that you're looking for every single morning. So it is really entirely up to you. That question is done. So I'm going to answer the next question. It's from Sven. Sven's saying, so is Berkey, the big Berkey filtered water, can it be applied to the Phi Aqua? For sure. We definitely use a big Berkey here, or when we used to. We now just got it under the sink scenario. But the big Berkey is good enough. It does bring the water good enough through the carbon filters. Actually, there's some Berkey filters that also go inside that are not strictly carbon, but that remove other things from the water. So you may, if you don't have those, may want to jump on the Berkey site and see what other kind of filters they have. They even have filters that remove fluoride. Actually, I forgot to make that one live. The next question here is, since it's not drinking water to fulfill thirst, it's like a supplement water custom made for, I don't know. So basically the person's maybe a little bit unfamiliar with the device. And basically what the water is for is that you program the water either based on the preset sets or based on the intentions that you're looking for. And what is provided to you is an actual spectrum. First of all, you have the presets, and then you have data that's given to you about what specific frequencies do in water. And then what the device is allowing you to do is it's allowing you to program that frequency in water via ultrasonic sound, light, geometrics, and frequency. So we're basically redundifying the ability to get this frequency inside of water. So we're not just leaning on one way of getting frequency inside that water. And of course, this also structures water. And if you may not know, structured water is really good for the body. Again, the surface tension is lower, there's a higher absorption, and that helps everything with the body. We don't want to start to making claims and the FDA things going on right now, but that's what you're basically dealing with. And we'll provide information about how all that really works, and we'll also pull from other sources so you can see that that's just not something that we're claiming. So the next question here is, and with this device, is there a need to remineralize or balance the pH, or would you be supplementing with mineralization? Now, because you have the monatomics, and now obviously, first of all, whatever water that you start with, that's going to determine where your pH is. Now, if you want to move around your pH and your mineral levels, then we have monatomics to move around the pH and move around their mineral levels. We also have one more product in development that I actually haven't discussed because we haven't been able to secure the production of that product, although I do have a way of creating it. And what it does is it drives it drives the conductivity of the water up, and it also pushes the pH alkaline levels higher. But of course, you don't want alkaline levels that are too high. So in our program water, we're able to put it in that water, and then for us to produce that supplement, then we need to go through some more channels. So as of now, that element is in the programmed water, and that's what gives it those abilities. And we hope to be able to provide that element just by itself so people can add that to, whatever water that they have. But again, so just to answer the question very clearly, you can remineralize and you can pH balance water with monatomics, or you can use the water that you have if it already has the mineral and the pH balance that you're looking for. Going on here, there's a question that with the new aspirant ambassador training programs be like, and I guess that may have been one of them that came in a little bit early, and because I did explain kind of thoroughly of what those would actually be like. They would also be conducted here on this Zoom, so I would have the opportunity to not only do polls, do questions. It's also a bit different. This is the webinar version of the software that we're using. This would be the one that we're using is called I'm not sure. I think it's called either a Zoom room or something else, but basically it allows more interaction. So the big difference is like this is more of like just one person talking and people can't really interact with each other. And then the other one's more like a classroom where you do have a teacher, but also the students are able to interact with each other. So that's kind of the primary foundation to or structure of how those classes will be coordinated. And the big keys to those classes would just be drilling right into this is what you need to know. And then we'll be going through that step by step. And then we'll also see the benefit of the Spiritech classes is that we have the luxury to go over things like the big three, disruptionalism, things that don't directly connect to stuff like what we're talking about on secret energy all the time, but definitely connect to a person's success if they're looking to be an entrepreneur, if they're looking to start their own company, if they're looking to get an idea off the ground, etc. So I'm going to go ahead to the next question here. The next question is, thanks for your time. May all your wishes and dreams come true today. Love you, Seven, and I love you too. And yes, may that happen for me and you and for everyone else that has participated in this call today and in the future. So here we go with another question. That question is, what is the Spiritech certification program? And what that is that there is going to be levels of that. Like obviously sometimes you can't actually kind of conceive everything at one time, but you don't want to also, and this is another part of when you're creating something, I guess, we'll give a little knowledge here. When you're creating something, sometimes you could, like, let's say with Phi Aqua, there could be a point where we're like, okay, we'll add this. Well, then we want this, and then we're going to add this. And then technically, like from that technical side, let's say maybe we've already completely configured the device, and now adding these new things actually cause it to be like, okay, well, now we got to change the entire design. So watch this 1 second for me. All right. So when you were going through the process of conceptualizing, let's say the Phi Aqua design, and this is like a raw prototype of the actual device, right? And so a super raw prototype. And so when we went through this process, and then we started looking at how much room is in the base, and what is the overhead of the device, and how when it has to go into the box, like how is it going to end up getting packed? And, so you look at all these different things, and then all those things start to tell you other stuff about how it needs to be designed and how it should work. So you go through so many reiterations. So I said all of that to say this initial program that we're offering for Spiritech, when they are complete with the ambassador program, I will feel comfortable that those people that participated in that ambassador's program are now on the bar. Now, it doesn't mean that, on the bar of actually knowing something. Now, of course, you could get people participating in everything and they're just there, they're sitting there. So certification doesn't mean that that's giving you the leeway to go and do whatever you want to do. You have to put yourself into that. You have to actually know that you're the person calibrated to do things, right? So the certification actually doesn't, it only means just very little. But we will be giving the certification for this particular class, which teaches a person the entrepreneur side and the business side of success. But I would hope that also begins to evolve into other kind of courses, like dealing specifically with people in relation to not only products, but what you're presenting, right? Because I think that that's a big thing. It's like, there's one thing to just understand about business, marketing, campaign, the big three, all those kind of things. And, a lot of the caveats that come with that. But every single thing that needs to be known can't be covered there, right? There's another side to it. So I would hope that there would be interest for people to take different kinds of classes, and that we would begin to get those kind of classes developed. Here's some things also that I'm looking to do for others, because, when I see eBays and I see Facebooks, all I see is one thing. When you let people do something, like Facebook, people put content on there. We go there to see that content. Facebook's not putting that content there. That's how Yahoo died, is because they wanted to curate all the content, right? Same thing with eBay. eBay lets you sell products on their site, and they get paid for the products that you sell. eBay doesn't sell products themselves. eBay is not saying, hey, this person's making a lot of money off this product, let's start selling those products. Amazon works a little bit different than that, but they also allow people to sell products. So what we're doing is we have one major thing, and we call it member stores. And member stores is actually, the functionality is already in our site. And what member stores is it allows each person to begin to sell approved products in a part of the Secret Energy site, because Secret Energy is a social network, right? So this is still separate from what goes on at Spiritech. But the reason why we haven't been able to put that in and make it live yet is the issue that is going on with the servers and re-optimizing the site. So in my vision, I expected to have site optimizations and everything done by December. What happened was Christmas, that everyone seemed to go on this break, including the developers, the programmers, and everything, mainly customs. And then what I was left with is stuff stuck in customs and developers that were off. And we didn't start recovering from that big drop of when we went secure, as Secret Energy went secure, HTTPS in January, which kind of crashed everything. And then we need to rebuild the entire thing. So only until this Monday, this Monday, have we actually started fully getting the whole Secret Energy situation under control. So that way we can move into member services. So that was a long way of answering one question, but that one question actually connects to so many different things. So we would want to get the Spiritech certification program into different levels. So we're going to keep going through this. Next question is, if you added this infused water, let me make it live, whatever that means, I still don't know. If you added this infused water to a large vessel, would it change the frequency of it? Yes. In fact, see, what happens is, because you can run as many cycles as you want with the Phi Aqua device, this is called potentizing. It's like a form of what goes on in homeopathy, but it's basically, you would keep making the water more and more potent the more you kept running it over and over. Now, the device is set, because remember, we're using mathematics, we're using frequencies, we're using cycles per second. So how the presets are, which run from 7 to 15 minutes, depending on what you're doing, though, that's enough. So you don't believe you need this thing to run for an hour, but when you're potentizing something, it's like concentrated. So if you're then trying to transfer that over to a larger vessel, then that would be a good idea to potentize it, right? And here's another thing that's important. I'm glad this question was asked, because it sparked another thing. Kagan Water obviously is another affiliate network. And obviously they've been picking up quite a bit of steam these days, especially amongst the younger people. I see people emailing me, hey, I want to talk to you about Kagan Water, right? So I'm like, what is Kagan Water doing over there that's getting, younger people involved? And I guess that's just because there's a lot of people now making YouTube videos trying to get the Kangen water sold, right? Only drawback, the great water device, the device is $4,000. So obviously Phi Aqua is not that expensive. But the main thing that reason that they say Kangen water sells still is because when you buy a device, which costs you $4,000, you can give the water away then, I guess, up to the exhaustion of the filter, right? But when you're giving everyone this water, they say eventually some people say, well, I want my own device because I like the way the water tastes, okay? So also remember that Phi Aqua has that same kind of ability to that. You can make vials of water that are programmed already and give them to friends and assist them with, drinking these waters with this programmed water with projections. So you're not just limited to, okay, well, I don't really have a way to share with water with anyone else because, this is not a water purifier. Think about that just vials of purified intentions is enough to getting the group, especially around you, into the proper resonance and frequency to manifest. And that's why I was saying that there is really no limitations of what you can do with the device. And there will always be things to think about that, oh, maybe I ultra potentize it and take a bath. You'll be thinking about stuff all the time. And then the beauty is that you'll have the ability to try it. So the next question here is that in Spiritech, are you going to make it available to all of us to have a conference together in the physical, like a huge conference where we all come together for a few-day workshops? This would be awesome, and it would be very awesome. In fact, the only issue with those kind of things is centralization, meaning that if someone's in Europe, someone's in America, someone's in Costa Rica, it's like, where do you choose for it to be? And then where does everyone come to? And obviously we've done the retreats in the past, and it's just because sometimes there's, it's so expensive that some people say, I can't even afford the plane ticket, and there's nothing that we can do about that. So what we've devised, however, and this is something I'm working on with a good friend of mine, Alistair, and another very great friend of mine from Germany named John, who actually just left Costa Rica, is developing an app that actually has the ability to link people in their area with other people that are conscious. And then I'm also talking with Keyshawn about doing something that's also more woman orientated and also more connection orientated in regards to apps, because where I'm at now is like continuously building websites. It's like, oh my goodness, they're difficult to build. Well, they're easy to build, but they're difficult to manage, especially if they have a social network aspect to them. And likewise, desktop stuff is really being phased out. Like when you look at the numbers of the people that are on the Secret Energy app versus the people that are on this Secret Energy website is drastically different. And it's just because people, they have to work, so they can't be having Secret Energy up and the boss is walking by and they got some crazy thing on the screen. That get you fired. So they get their phones down there and they look, and since there's an app, that's what they're using. So it's like a big epiphany for me. I was a little late, but hey, we need to move things over to an app. And so now I'm working with app design, seeing how we can kind of like, get past a lot of the technical hurdles that are generally associated with apps, so we can start developing more devices that integrate people in the physical. And then ultimately, doing collective meditations, things that always take place at 8 in the morning in every single time zone, where you have groups of people. But see, now that's functionality. And that's, I've been doing that, studying that for the last, 7 years. So now I'm making a lot of headway and understanding what kind of tools we need. And, what is the conscious community really demanding to get itself more unified. In fact, I call this Project Unity, and it's basically to bring conscious people together that are in their area, and for us to be able to see, like Tinder or whatever, literally a grid of where the next conscious person really is, because they're probably closer than you think. And this is, again, using conscious as a generic term. So here we go with the next question. Is from Michelle Baker. She asks, may we pose a proposal and projected time frame of 9 months for potential marketing in an email? I do want to understand more. I'm interested in the university of those products and those products. Okay. Well, I guess the best thing, again, is to email me, support@secretenergy.com. And, whatever you're looking to do, because everything does need organization, and it actually, it needs structure. You can email me about it, and I can see how I can bring some structure to it. The next question here is from an anonymous attendee. Can this be used to overcome addiction? And once again, for us to be getting into making claims, it actually puts us into an aspect of us actually not being able to make Phi Aqua a reality. And this is what everyone needs to understand that's representing the product. or that's even using the product, is that once you get into making certain kind of claims, you can literally be removed from being able to allow people to have the ability to use a device like this once you start making those claims. So what I'll say is this, that there's no limitations to what can be done when you can manipulate the frequency, and when you can manipulate frequencies and embed those frequencies within water. And there are aspects of the frequency spectrum that have to do with getting rid of things that are habitual. That's what I'll say about that. There's another question here. The question is there a limit? Is there a limit on the number of ambassadors training? No, there isn't. We can actually scale up to any number. The next question here is, do we have a price tag for the Phi Aqua machine yet? No, we do not. In fact, all the prices that you may have seen today on the site are superficial, meaning that they're just there to fill in the position of what needs to be put in that place. We have not completely determined prices of anything, because what we're also still doing is we're trying to drive down the cost of manufacturing. And obviously driving down the cost of manufacturing brings down the cost of the device. We've even at this point have two different styles. One that is a bit easier to manufacture, so it will bring the price down, but it doesn't actually have the same aesthetics as the larger device. So we've even been flirting with having a more cost-efficient version and then having a premium version, which we think, as far as also I guess they would say a business model, that will be better, because then you wouldn't exclude someone because they couldn't afford it. There would at least be another tier that would give it to them cheaper. So that's what we're working on with that. Next question here is, and can you fit your own product in this store too? A person can put their products in the store two ways, meaning there's two ways to actually have our store alongside your products. One is in existence right now, and the one is you can actually place the Secret Energy store, which is Spiritech store, etc., inside of your website. And you can go to a link that's actually on spiritech.com under, let's see, that's under resources. And then you can go down to affiliate store application. And then we send you links. You can then embed this store into your page. And then on that same page, you can put all your products on the page. Now, as far as getting products into our faculties, what we want to do is we want to open up what we call member stores. And what that is an area where, like eBay, everything that a member is offering, but it'll look nicer though. Everything that a members are offering, if they have wares, like my good friend Joshua Spare, he does a lot with sculpting. Sven paints, amazing paintings. Kishan has amazing creations. There's many people that they have stuff that they're doing already. So the moment that I get the green light that the platform is stable enough for us to begin that process, because it's also very resource intense. You can imagine if a person's uploading their pictures and, they're clicking here and they're kind of in their own dashboard, that all those resources draw from our servers. So we have to make sure that our servers are capable of handling that before we give the green light on doing that. But our new setup is pushing towards that right now, and pushing towards lower page load speeds. The next question here is, with the Spiritech Ambassador Program, will be given the tools and techniques to market the products and services given by Secret Energy. To answer that question, the Ambassadors Program actually already incorporates, because it's like a hybrid version of the Spiritech Specialist Program. So it incorporates the ability to not only provide the products by Secret Energy, well, first of all, specialists can also provide the products of Spiritech's and Secret Energy. Everyone has the opportunity to do that. The difference between the aspirant and the ambassador programs are: 1, the training; 2, the higher commissions; 3, the support groups, et cetera, et cetera. And because all those resources take resources, then we need to make sure that resources are flowing properly. So that's why those services have costs associated to them. The next question here is, are there any services being bought about by Secret Energy other than University? Are there one-on-one talk sessions, small sessions for healing, and workshops for expanding consciousness? Amazing question once again, because it brings me to one of the only things that I think I may have forgot to mention in this conversation, and that's obviously I had to discontinue life coaching personally for a moment, because it was just impossible for me to keep up with the amount of people that needed the life coaching versus all the other things that needed to be done. So I had to make a personal decision to discontinue life coaching because it was taking up too much time that needed to be to build the platform or to create Spiritech to what it is, to create the device. Because every time someone signs up, there's either 3 hours or it could be a couple weeks, depending on what they signed up for. So what happened is that I had a bigger idea in the first place. And again, when you have these ideas, they need to be prioritized, the functionality needs to be created, et cetera, et cetera. And I actually did that. We found amazing software that allowed us to start a process of allowing other people to become motivational speakers and life coaches, and really coaches in different aspects. Because and how this works is, and this is something that it's not rolling out now because there's things that we have to focus on, we have to get complete, and then we can move to the next thing. Zoom is actually a big part of it because now we have now found the functionality. And I just would tell people, like, you could have big ideas, but if you don't know the functionality, then it ain't never going to happen, because it won't happen because you don't know, well, how's that supposed to get to everyone else? And so something like Zoom, it allows the idea to now take a big leap, because what we wanted to do was we wanted to begin to feature or speak with people. Like, instead of just doing a show with just me on it, I would be inviting people that I've either met down the path or maybe somebody recommends and we check them out. And we would be inviting these people to the show. And if they had something special that they did, that's what we would be really discussing. And then if the person was signed up with us, then we would give other people an opportunity, show listeners, site members, et cetera, to be coached by that person with what they're doing. And it was so hybridized. Like, it wasn't just, okay, this person is a life coach, motivational speaker. It's even like a kind of a mentor to mentor program, because like one of my friends, he's a lawyer, and, he's always traveling, and he's doing different things. And, and so he's just got his own little interesting thing going on, interesting guy. So when you have him on, he talk about those kind of things. And if someone let's say someone else was listening and said, man, that's the kind of person that, I really need to talk to, I really feel like is doing the same thing that I'm doing, then we would have a program that actually allows that person to become that person's mentor. But again, these kind of things to manage, because it has to be management. Like, I can't say enough about when you create something, you need to manage it. Like customer service is a big part of every company, right? So if you grow into something and you don't have the management system together and the support system, the quality of what you're developing will go down drastically. So if you already got a good track record, like right now we have an impeccable track record, and we've always delivered. We've been giving stuff away for 7 years, high levels of knowledge. So we've done enough. So I would encourage anyone never to feel like Secret Energy or Spiritech or whatever owes you anything. Like, it's there would be something wrong with your consciousness then. We've given so much, but we always give with attempting to maintain a certain level of quality, like trolling, people that, don't really click really well. We try to really usher those people out of the whole thing. Just help them help themselves. Don't go over there and get mad at yourself. So because of that, that's because we're curating a lot of stuff that's on the site. Even when, like, a good example is just recently I put up a video about, perception and how our brain really perceives things, right? So I watched the video, and it was only 1.5 minutes left in the video. And because it was a great video, and I was like, this thumbs up, I closed the video then, and then packaged the video up, and then sent it online on my channel. And I looked into the thread, and I'm like, just like maybe, I guess, like next day or whatever, and I start seeing all these, you're putting out Islamic propaganda and blah, blah, blah. I can't believe you did this. I don't know why you're going in this direction. I'm like, what are they talking about? So like, something must have been in that video. So the only place it could have been is in the last minute. So I go to the last minute, and sure enough, the guy spins the entire video into that everyone needs to worship Allah. So this is what I'm talking about. Like, and you would think you wouldn't have to pay attention to this kind of stuff, but you do. So anything that you develop that you have to comb through things, because, it can send the wrong idea or the wrong representation of what you've built so far. You have to be cautious of. So that's the thing with growth, is that it's called scaling up. you have to make sure that whatever you're scaling up into, that you have the infrastructure for it. And right now, we only have a certain amount of infrastructure because infrastructure counts on two things. This is parts of the ambassadors program. It counts on one, that you have the resources to actually even pay professionals, meaning that if you're developing something, when you're building that with someone, they need to be able to do it. Like they don't just, there's more than just the idea. It's like, okay, well, you're a programmer, so I need to pay you to program. Now, if you're trying to give this person it for free, if you're trying to make them do it for free, it's almost like that's the same vampiric kind of idea behind that, whether you think so or not. The person's going to give away their energy and they're not really getting anything from it. In addition to that, and maybe until they see the reward of it being done. But the issue with that is also that because they will probably have real bills and things to take care of, they only can give you either so much time, so much of their nicer things, like, their nicer banners or nicer codes or whatever. So basically you want to pay people, okay? You don't want too many people just doing it for free, because also when it's just for free and because we have the same idea, somehow that equates to a lot of personal issues. And then when a person's coming in with personal issues, that's going to stagnate the process of whatever you're developing. And this is why companies don't let you bring personal issues generally into the office. Because, like, for instance, if in a company, they know you, they know all your kids, they know all of that, when it's time to fire you because maybe you're not doing your job right, how are they going to feel about firing you? They're not going to be able to do that. This also credits to why most communities never work, because it's so personal that everyone's bringing in their roller coaster personal programs into the community, and then the community is suffering because it can't get organized, because there's always going to be a person that is bringing their personal into the scenario and it's not making things work. So this is what you also need to know about when you're developing things, about where all that kind of stuff is. So that's one, having the resources to actually pay people so that way they can accomplish what you need them to accomplish because they're professionals. Then two, and this is where you only can depend on synchronicity. Generally, when someone's a professional at doing something, they may not be quote unquote conscious or follow your idea as much as you're following it from your, spiritual level. They may not even believe in that. They may be Christians. So the moment that they get wind that what you're doing is contrary to their beliefs, they're either out of there, they're either trying to sabotage it, or they never start in the first place. So you're kind of counting on synchronicity to not just get you in front of a person that is professional that can do what you need them to do, but also can have the same idea and vision and frequency and vibration that you're on, okay? And now I've been dealing with this for 7 years, and it's a very tough fit, right? It literally counts on you needing to know how to do a lot of things, because if you're counting on that to happen first, you may find yourself stagnant and getting things done. But eventually, you'll attract the right people when you stop sending the mixed signals and you get enough resources. Maybe you'll be able to pay them, and then you'll build something. So all this is a part of that. It's a part of, it's not like somebody saying, hey, I got $5 million, $10 million, $100 million right now, and I can just start up things overnight. That's not what you're looking at here. You're looking at step by step, piece by piece. It's all been built, and nothing's came overnight. There's no hocus pocus. There's some magic to it. You have to put as much work in as you expect reward out, and that's the way we want it to be. Next question is, these questions are increasing. It says, where can I go, if you can't answer quickly here, to learn about the differences between the monatomics from before and then now? It was my understanding that these are integrated into water somehow. Okay, yeah, and also, Eddie, I think also, Eddie, I do need to talk to you anyway directly about some stuff. So we'll talk about that when I get on the phone with you. Hold this. Next question is, could this be marketed as the best nootropic? That's a big question, because nootropics are actually classified, meaning that there are elements that are classified as nootropics. And while even colloidal gold actually benefits the neurological network inside the mind, it still can't be classified as a nootropic. So it can be classified as things that assist with the conductivity and the overall clarity and flow of the mind. But to classify it in the category of nootropics, it cannot be, because nootropics are specific elements. So we'll keep going on this. So this question is, are we in the process of looking into commercial size Phi Aqua, or Aqua in this case, and some people do call it that, for spiritual water stores, or larger ones for household use? And what I would say is that the next phase, obvious for us, would be water purification, which I know for sure have more adaptations for those kind of environments, right? So I think that at a certain point, because programming water, you really don't actually need that much water. That's what we found out. And we don't want to send mixed signals at all. Like the more you can just nail things into exactly what they do, the more you have ability to grow, and then the more you're not dealing with any kind of crap because you've made some false claims. So when we talk about on a commercial level, commercial places, I talked to a guy here from Juternal, the owner of the company, and he's got one here, he's got one in Texas, he's got one in Georgia. And what he was basically explaining from a commercial level is that commercial businesses are mostly interested in water purification. Programming water and all that is way over their head. They're not interested. Now, as far as stores, for sure, I believe that you will see Phi Aquas in Whole Foods and those kind of places are, because you got to think about maybe Sharper Image, right? Maybe on, Unbox Therapy. Those kind of outlets is probably where you'll see more of Phi Aqua appearing, because again, even for that to be like on an aisle in a store, it's like it would more fit in Best Buy than it would in like the grocery store, just in the sense to genre and what those stores are supposed to carry. So, but when you're looking at like, again, Sharper Images and places where people buy eclectic items, it's different. And even, again, personal stores, those kind of things is different. The thing about Phi Aqua we got to remember is that, it's just one of those devices that if a person has the opportunity to be able to get it and they're into that kind of thing, I mean, it's an endless thing for them and other people in relation to the device. It's like when someone walks in the house, it's like the first thing they're probably going to ask if it's there is like, what is that? Because it doesn't fit into the standard square geometry of what most people have as their appliances and their electronics and things that are around their house. So next question here is, what was the type of battery the Phi Aqua uses? Discloses Phi Aqua does not actually use a battery. It does plug directly into the wall socket, and this is because the actual motors that are inside, they do need the power. Like there's a few different things, and there's lights, there's frequencies, so batteries would just be not adequate to power the device. Next question here is, I didn't catch what the price was going to be. And as I mentioned, the price is not mentioned yet. That's just based on manufacturing costs. And when we finally get to that phase, of course, then everyone will know then it's not over $1,000 if you wanted some kind of ballpark, but it's definitely not into that range. So anywhere below there, and we're just working on driving those prices down, but also not selling it short either, because of course people have to represent this product. There's going to be commissions on this product, higher commissions. There's a standard market value for different things. So all that stuff is taken into consideration, which we will before we actually release the final prices on this device. MJ asks, adding it live allows everyone to, let me share it. Adding it live allows everyone to see the questions you are, thanks MJ. I was wondering, thank you. Next question here is from Bobby. He says, after transferring program water, how long will the frequency last? How long before the EMF is affecting it? Great question. Bobby's always tapping in. The actual vessel is Myron, excuse me. So the vessel has a field around it that basically protects it from EMF, ultraviolet, and those kind of frequencies. And then one of the main reasons why we created resonators, and here's one here for those one, seeing that chip milled out. This is actually the circuit board for a resonator. So what we know resonators also help with, and it's not necessary. Like I think that a person, if they don't have a resonator, or at least somewhere, let's say that they can say is not being exposed to harmful frequencies, they should probably just leave it in the device. So it will last for a prolonged period inside the device because it has resonance. Now, when you take that out of the device, it'd probably be great to be able to put it right on top of a resonator, something that actually holds a stable frequency, right? And then, but overall, you would see it just like anything else. When it's fresh, it would be the strongest. The degradation, you will see a degradation within 48 hours generally of any element that's added to water. So I can measure that by conductivity. So if the water's at a certain level and I leave it for a day, when I come back and measure it, its conductivity is going to be less. So that is our indicator that what we initially placed in there is being depleted, but is not gone. Now we have some trials that we're running, and this is what you'll kind of see, when we start doing some of these up closes in the actual lab. And we have vials that actually been sitting there for 3 months. And then every now and then we pull out those vials and we test them, and we test all of those. We test ORP, we test pH, we test conductivity. We test everything that we can, everything that we have devices to test with. And when we record, like, how much it's decreased, it always decreases. And this is one thing that you should know: the fresher, the better. But it is still there. And the decreasing is generally around, or the degradation is generally 4 to 5%. So, but we don't know in what span. So it could be 4 to 5% in a week. It could be 4 to 5% in a month. You see what I mean? So these are the things, that's why you run trials, because you start asking questions like that. And then, of course, because we run some of those trials, we're in a position where we can answer some of those questions. So next question here is, when are we finally going to move forward and end this limitation program where was the mind system program and money is gone? Well, I guess the moment that people start to become sovereign, the moment that instead of thinking about when it's going to be over, we start doing something to actually end it. And that's just from the heart, just explaining now that if I'm not a defeatist and I don't retreat, so I can't actually process in the reality that I'm tired of being here and I want it all to be over. If I start doing that, then it won't allow me to get up. It won't allow me to do what I'm doing right now. I can't pull motivation through myself like that. And so I see a plan, and that's the plan that I've put together based on everything I know in my 38 years of this experience on the planet, of what will bring it closer to what you're asking, which is, if we have our cryptocurrency, if we're issuing jewels instead of dollar bills, if we are the bank for our people, if we're manufacturing products that the world wants and the world is getting those products, and then we can develop an open source blueprint that other people start to adapt in Australia, England, wherever, because they see that this model works better than the model that they're using. And a lot of people have come to claim that they would do this, like Venus Project, association with Thrive documentaries, all these kind of things of telling people that, hey, this is what's going to happen and a whole new earth or whatever. But any person that just knows what we're going to be talking about in the ambassador class would know what was being presented wouldn't work, and how to not put things into your plan that are not going to work in the first place. For instance, one community claimed that anyone from all over the world could come to their community and passports would not even be needed. But the issue with that is, let's say, for instance, all the refugees from Syria will come there. No country can actually get involved and say, we're going to accept people from Syria without passports, right? It's just not even possible without having these people on your doorstep. So what I'm into is, I'm into realism. I'm into what I can do right now. And I find it could be quite a bit. And how can I make things easier, especially in consideration to the children, not necessarily me all the time, not necessarily adults all the time, but truly, if you want to do something for the world, we need to start thinking about how are we going to get the kids into systems to where they don't even start having the programming and the issues that we're trying to get rid of right now. So it's a whole process, the answer to the question. And the faster that we start getting on that process, the faster that it'll actually happen. Now, it's not anyone's responsibility. I want people to feel like today, hey, that's my responsibility. Because if you feel like the weight of it, then you won't be able to carry it. It's just about saying that I'll do my best. And what it is in front of me is what I make it. And that's where I'm at with this. So I can't tell you the days like, oh, it's going to be 2020 and the alien's going to come down. And after that, they're going to steal all the oil away from the humans. And we're going to have to use magnets. Like, I can't give you any stories. All I can say is that we make it happen. We create the future that we want to see. Next question here is that, have we done the mega hydrate blood test yet? Using a microscope on water or blood before or after, will we see anything? Now, obviously, the mega hydrate blood test has actually been done before, and it's actually been done by doctors. That video is on YouTube. I haven't done it because it takes a microscope that can actually see into blood cells, and that one's a little bit more expensive. So that's what I have to say about that. But what you would see is what you see on the video, and actually, that video should be attached inside the mega hydrate product. And last time I checked, it was there. And I know it's on my page, and I think that's on my page about mega hydrate. It's inside of there. So you can check that out and you can see what it does, because it puts the oxygenation into the blood then it starts moving away all the toxins, destroying all the bacteria, etc. All right, all right. Looks like we're coming to the end of this. Let me see. Okay, so there's someone says, I know you touched on the price earlier. Can you give approximation? And that's what I was saying. I did give approximation. By the way, great idea on offer of a standard and premium version for sure. So like I said, under 1,000, the lower unit, if we choose to put that one out, because it's just things that we need to make decisions about. So we're not really at leisure to say one thing or another, because obviously someone's gonna say, what, but you said, and so we're working on it. Oh, that was the question right there for those looking to see it. And then the next question here, we got five more questions here, and 6 more questions, excuse me, and then I'm going to go ahead and let everyone get to what they do, because some people hold on and like, I just can't miss anything, but I got to go use the restroom, or I got to go to work or whatever. So we want to go ahead and end it sometime soon. This will also be a video that will be archived, so anyone will be able to check this out. The question here is, would it be possible to purchase multiple Phi Aqua units wholesale? And I would, I don't know. Like, I need to see manufacturing, how manufacturing works. As far as like for us, like what direction we're going to take. Are we going to, because manufacturing, certain things you outsource, like obviously, let's say circuit boards, you may have to print 10,000 boards, and that may cost you $40,000, right? And generally, it's difficult to make boards at home for complex devices. Those are called pick and place machines. These are all things that you can ask me about. Well, anytime, this is not just ambassador stuff, but this is just stuff you'll learn. But in that whole part that I was saying about devices, SLA, thermoforming, pick and place machines that put chips on desktop versions, industrial versions. So I've looked into all of that. So when we can get to the point of being able to manufacture Phi Aqua entirely ourselves, not just the certain parts, because there's obviously certain parts we keep in-house. And then there's other things like vacuum forming where you need 10,000. And if you have a vacuum forming unit at your house that can produce 10,000, it's like there's smoke, they need ventilation. There's a lot of stuff with that. So we'll see what happens with as far as wholesale pricing on Phi Aqua, because our primary goal is to really get commissions in the right place. Because you got to remember, in models, right, there's business models. They're real things. In that business model, if you're selling Phi Aqua wholesale for this, let's say, wholesale price that's lower than commissions, it hurts the people who are getting paid to sell the device for commissions. Now, of course, our whole goal is we want to employ people. So we wouldn't want our units to be available somewhere for cheaper, or we wouldn't want to provide our units for cheap somewhere, because then that always allows someone else to kind of funnel in. And that's actually what's happened with many products, something to worry about with many products on Amazon, like even Ethereum Gold and those Ethereums, mega hydrates. Those products are having problems now because you have some people that they call that MAPS. It's or MIPS. It's basically the manufacturer asking price. I guess that would be MAPS. And it's basically, if a person goes below that, then it hurts everyone else. So we want to make sure that that kind of thing doesn't happen. So we have that this device has a value, and then everyone across the board is not feeling like, oh man, I just bought a device and I could have got it cheaper over there. We want to avoid those kind of things from happening altogether. That way we stay strong, we stay robust, and we do what we say we're going to do. Actually, I didn't show that question either. There it was. Would it be possible to purchase multiple Phi Aqua units wholesale? Here's another question here. How long does a cycle take of Phi Aqua? That's 7 to 15 minutes is the duration of the programming. And then, this thing is also aesthetically pleasing. So for that 7 to 15 minutes, it's lights, camera, action. It's lights, it's vibrate, the spiral. You can hear the audible sounds. And then there's unaudible, which you can kind of catch a little bit. And those are ultrasonic sounds, because we do use ultrasonics in the device. It's very important, because ultrasonic sound is basically above 20,000 hertz you can't hear. So that's 20 kilohertz. So ultrasonics, generally, we start at 40 kilohertz. And then from there, it goes on and on and on. And we find the octave in kilohertz. And that's how we're using ultrasonics. And ultrasonics is capable of moving the particles and shaping the particles within water more than audio. But we do audio too. So we're redundifying with this device. So that's literally saying, I know this is going to work. Next question here is, So on the packaging, what claims will be making as far as what this product does? And actually, once we open the site, you'll kind of see, because obviously just to kind of detail everything that we're going to say and not say is going to be a little bit lengthy at this part of the conversation. But the thing is that one, a person will know what the product does. And I guess the last thing is that they need to believe that it will do that. And what we're leaning on for that is we're leaning on all of the supporting information, because that's what you really want. You don't want to keep making the claims. You want the person to see that there's information other places that actually confirm what the claims are. So the device will be so integrated with, its packaging and how it's purchased. And even when a person's buying it, they'll have access to all of that data before they purchase, after they purchase, etc. So it will answer the questions for them when they're just trying to see if they even believe that this could even happen. Next question says, is wholeness and balance? Thanks for the live session. I'm amazing. Earlier, when you said sovereign, I thought of the sovereign being. My question is, can we use Phi Aqua to cleanse crystals? For sure, and energize crystals. In fact, Phi Aqua does use crystals, the crystal geometry, and we also have another method that I'm not at leisure to really discuss, but it's basically of how we are utilizing the fractalization from crystals in order to create that field within the device. And if you put another crystal inside of that water, then, this would be what would be called encoding. But of course, see, now I know about all this stuff. I know what it can do. But if you start talking about stuff that becomes too far out for people, then it's like, he's now charging his encoding. But that's just how things work. Like, yes, you can do something with crystals with the Phi Aqua device. And you can also use crystals basically as a medium of storing what you place within that water, because that's basically what our computers are, our crystals storing information. So the next question here is, just thanks for sharing. Thanks for being here, brother. Wholeness. Like, it's an amazing time as always. Like, I love to get on this, but there's always this whole preparation period. It's not like okay, I guess I'll talk to everyone today. If that was the case, I think that's kind of how it was on the first year. It was like I would literally roll over to the bed and turn on the computer, wholeness and balance vibration. That was us then. Now, it's a lot more to do before we can get on the camera, because generally we need to be presenting something and we need to be moving along with something, right? I think Eddie may need to ask that question again. He's saying I meant with Phi Aqua. I kind of pushed away the first question, so I would need to know what that's related to. MJ's asking, can I use Phi Aqua water for horticulture purposes? And for sure. I mean, there's no quicker way I can answer that question. So yes, Phi Aqua water can be used. Remember, Phi Aqua water is completely fortified with that frequency and that program inside of it. And then if you're using some of the consumables, like the add-ons, like the monatomics, etc., it just only gets better from there. Like, really, it's overkill, meaning that this is doing something, but for me, I like to make sure, because my reputation, my name, everything is behind that in Spiritech. So I want to go above and beyond. Like, I even use certain devices. We were talking about the neurophone. I sold my neurophone because I was like, man, what is this thing even doing? Like, I broke it down. I was like, man, this board design is like very basic. I was like, man, I just don't, I don't see it. I don't feel it. But millions of people said it's $1 million device. There's millions, 1.5 million in sales. Many people say that it does, but I don't feel that. I want something that people feel. So coming to the close here, it says, one last question. Are there opportunities to get involved for those who are horrible at sales and marketing? And that's aspirant program, specialist program, get the materials. Yeah, because the materials are actually going to teach you exactly how to work with yourself in relation to sales. Because see, what this is about is, remember, Spiritech is designed, and this is what we're continuously doing to make it easy. We want to do a lot of the heavy lifting. Now, we can't do everything for you, but a lot of the heavy lifting is actually in the materials. And so we're going over it one more time. Again, all of the marketing materials, we're going to take all the current ads and those kind of things. We're going to take a look at those, and then we're going to see how that blends with us. And we're going to be emulating a lot of the designs and those kind of things and making those tools available. And then what that does is it does, again, the heavy lifting. So it shouldn't be, to me, a product should always sell itself. It shouldn't be where this person has to go up there and sell this, say this amazing story in order for the person to want to buy something. It's also really about, if you're looking for a book, you should probably go to the library. This means that if you're somewhere where it doesn't even connect to what you're doing, then of course you're not going to find the success that you're looking for. So we talk about, and of course these classes will be available to you, what are the places that we know, like yoga studios, the bulletin board that's inside the gym, that a person can put certain ads that we've already created, already done the heat mapping, already done the color scheming and those kind of things. And I've gotten so much more better at this. Like I look at the previous stuff and I'm like, yeah, man, you know, it was nice and everything, but we can still tell you were a novice, because now we go for more of a minimalist approach, saying what needs to be said, sticking to the big three. You know, that's meaning the big three is sex, wealth, health. You know, like what triggers a person first before they even decide they want to look your way. So those kind of things are implemented into what we design. Is it safe for pets? For sure. Safe for humans is safe for pets. Last question here. I think Eddie was chiming in and said, if we put it under a microscope before and after Phi Aqua, what do we see? Well, see, the thing is to actually see in water, you need more than a microscope. You need, like, what we do is, just so you understand what goes on in the laboratory with testing water. And this is coming straight from Thermo Fisher. Thermo Fisher is like the connoisseurs or kings of water, if you may. Like they develop all the most advanced water devices for hospitals, right? And then for cell growth, like when you're growing cells, stem cells, you're growing tissues, organs, okay? All of that, you need a special kind of water to do, because there needs to be basically nothing inside the water. So you don't use telescopes, microscopes, microscopes, far infrared scopes, dark field microscopes, electron microscopes. You don't use any of those to see water. What you use is you use different devices. Like we have a device that basically measures what is going on in the water. Like how is it conducting? How many particles are in there, down to the parts per billion? What is the pH? Where is it at? And where is its fluctuation point? The oxidation reduction potential, the ORP. Where is the ORP at? Is it a safe ORP? So all of those things, what it literally does, because water is so mystical, it allows you to kind of draw this map around the water, because you can never really see it. And what this map does is it tells you what you did wrong, what's going on, what to add more of, what to add less, etc. And that's how water is really studied, because that's exactly what I went for first. Is I was like, well, let me just see what a modal did and duplicate that setup, which of course is what they have. Is they have the microscope, and then they have this room that they sit in that's super cold, and they freeze the water first, and they bring the water out into the super cold room. The guy's sitting there with a bundle jacket on. He's looking in the microscope, and he's taking thousands of pictures. And out of those thousands of pictures, a couple of them show them what the crystal looks like. Because when the crystal is growing, as the water is freezing, if a perfect crystal grows, you can photograph it. And so that kind of process, you need different kind of facilities to do. And that is not the standard way that people look at water, because then we would just be saying that having a perfect water crystal is going to confirm for us that we have great water. Well, we already have great water. We already know that. We know if we test this water, we'll get a perfect water crystal. But we need is to know all these other integers. And those integers are more to do with conductivity, malleability, like our surface tension tester, like, is it soft? Is it hard? So those are the kind of things that we use to actually test water. So I want to say wholeness and balance vibrations to everyone. Thank you so much for participating in today's conversation. It was nothing short of amazing. I believe that we got tons out, and it gives everyone a really clear idea of what we're doing now and where we're headed. And again, for those that did have some inquiries, support@secretenergy.com. You can reach me there. info@spiritech.com. All those connect into our system. That's what we got for right now. Check us out and what we're doing. We're going to keep getting deeper into this social media, posting more stuff related to what we're doing. And this is just the beginning. So that's it. Thank you.